Winter retreat to order. If you would, please roll call. Melissa.
Here.
Yeah.
Here.
Pete. Here. David.
Here.
Here. Okay. If you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Which flag do we use?
Anyone you want to use.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. Do we do it for each flag?
We can do it as many times as you'd like to. Patriotic this morning.
All right. Town manager, employee housing discussion.
Good morning.
Morning.
Here on day 3 of the retreat here. Just before we get started on topic 1, just a recap of what we've got in front of you today. We've got the employee housing discussion. We've got our 2025 board appointments. That is where this Hillary will hand out the packets with applications. I've got a couple slides to talk about the open positions. We've got a couple things a little bit different this year with a couple positions that are open that are not full-term ones. Then we've got some other items. IT updates will be relatively quickly, and then we're really going to spend some time trying to prioritize the things we talked about the last couple of days, including this morning. Lunch is here, and then we break and reconvene over at Town Hall for a North Carolina League of Municipalities Town Council Academy training. So some going back to school this afternoon over at Town Hall. So that's the plan for the day. But thank you for the first 2 days. I've got a few slides here to share something that we've talked about briefly, and just want to give kind of a general overview and an update. But employee housing, we'll start by saying it is early. It is day 3, so I know you're tired. I know everybody's exhausted, and I appreciate the time this week. But we're going to try to open our minds up and do some outside of the box thinking. So hang tight and let me get through this. I've got some slides put together and some data and information here to share. Why would we provide employee housing? Why would we even be talking about employee housing? Well, Town of Blowing Rock will build employee housing primarily to attract and retain talent by providing affordable housing options that can significantly improve employee satisfaction, reduce turnover, and enhance access to a wider pool of potential workers by mitigating housing concerns or the barrier to employment. It provides a connection to the town that we all serve, and the list could go on and on. The Child Care Center is a proof example of thinking outside of the box and doing something different. So this list could be forever, just like the Child Care Center. The more we think about the positive outcomes that we've had from it, the longer that list goes. Something that I think you're aware of, but just to give you some numbers that I pulled last night, housing affordability is a tough thing in this county. Housing in Watauga County, especially in the town of Blowing Rock, is not affordable to the average employee, definitely not for the town employee. We pay very well. Not well enough to afford the numbers you're going to see in a few moments. The overwhelming majority of our employees live well outside of town limits. And as of my count last night, about 50-ish% live outside of the county and travel in. There's only a couple of us that actually live within the town limits. Here are some real numbers on cost of housing. This is as of December 24 sold housing. Watauga County, the average price of a home sold in 2024 was $614,000. In Blowing Rock, the average home that sold in December 2024 was $1.3 million. Double that of Watauga County. If we go on the low end of what a current mortgage payment is, because our current rates are about 7%, $614,000 with 20% down, which is a big number to start with. That's $130,000 in cash to be able to put down, is going to still cost you $32.67 a month, and that does not include taxes or insurance. So the average home sold in December for Watauga County is going to cost you $40,000 to $50,000 annually. Our average salaries for the town is right at $50,000. Obviously, numbers don't compute. And then I didn't even put the numbers together for the town of Blowing Rock. Obviously, you can do the math. That's more than double. That's going to more than double down here within that. So just to put some things into perspective of the cost of housing in Watauga County. Again, you can do a snapshot for 1 month. You can do it for the year. The numbers don't change very much. We know what the housing market does. Or if you've been out there in the last few years, you've seen what's happened, especially during COVID. 2019, and David and others that's in this business can attest, these numbers were more in the upper threes. So we've seen almost a doubling in the last 5 years of the average home being sold in Watauga County and really the whole high country for the most part. Retail or rental market in Watauga County varies because we do have Appalachian State, we've got housing in Boone, so this encompasses all of that, but latest data, and these are ranges because it's difficult to nail down exactly an average rent, and these are not blowing rock, this is for the county. One bedroom is between $1,200 and $1,600 a month, two bedrooms is between $1,600 and $800 a month, and a three bedroom is $2,150 to $3,000 a month. So maybe a little bit better than owning a home, but still relatively expensive, depending on what you're looking. The rental market in Blowing Rock is very, very scarce. There's only a handful of rentals that pop up here and there in Blowing Rock. Boone is where the majority of these rentals are taking place, of course, because of apartments and townhomes, et cetera. So if we were to think outside of the box, something that we've just briefly started talking about, if we were to do something like potentially offering housing for town employees, where would be an option? So we picked some options, and again, this is outside the box thinking. The purpose of this is to spur on dialogue. Where are we heading? Are we heading anywhere? Do we want to go this direction? Do we want to do something? Because you'll get to a few minutes. The options get to be endless with some of this stuff. But if we were going to do it, potentially where could we do it? Well, one, where do we own land that we currently don't have plans for? We picked a spot. This is the spot up here on Valley Boulevard, Main Street, across from Food Line here. I think Albert used to refer to it as Mole Hill. Is that what he used to call it? I think Mole Hill or Mole. But we all know it's a laydown yard for Iron Mountain. It's been a laydown yard for DOT. We purchased this property a few years back when DOT gave us first rights of refusals after the widening of the road. So we've got a couple acres of land up here. So thinking, again, outside of the box, just getting the conversation started. Maybe this isn't the spot. Maybe we don't do it at all. But if we were going to pick this spot, I asked Mr. Harwood to put together maybe a concept. What could you put up here? What would it potentially look like? We'll see if it looks good on this one, David. If not, I'll go over to the PDF here. What do you think? Let me get a little better one. Let me pull it up on the PDF. Hang on, I've got it pulled up too. So let me see if the PDF looks a little bit better on what we've got. Let's see, we can zoom in a little bit closer on this one. That looks a little better, doesn't it? Yeah, there we go. All right. So Thomas, we good on screen there? That's it. All right, so here's a concept that Mr. Harwood put together, free of charge. So thank you, David, for putting this together. Of what potentially could go on a site like this. As we were kind of thinking through a potential concept, what could you do with a site like this? Obviously having ingress, egress on from 321, into the property, and what could you build on a site like this? And David, do you want to kind of explain your kind of rationale behind some of this?
Yeah, so I'm gonna stand up here, if that's okay. I'm sort of like Doug Chapman. Y'all know I don't do this, right?
Yeah.
I don't have these CAD skills, but I did lay this out, and with the help of Tony Dienst in my office, he was able to put this kind of in a CAD model. And the original concepts that I showed you guys, 5-6 months ago, something like that. We were using an old survey that was before the widening of 321. So this survey is very current in terms of where the property lines, what available amount of land was left over after it was resurveyed after the road widening. So what you're seeing is very accurate. And as you know, we've kind of got this flat area up here where the laydown yard is, and it falls off pretty good on all sides. Steeper slope here on the 321 side, and then more gradual here on the Main Street side. What we tried to do is find something that was efficient in terms of getting the number of units in there without being confined. We could certainly put something that had more density, an apartment building, something like that, where everything's squeezed in together. The problem is those apartment buildings get bigger and they push out parking somewhere else when you've got sort of this kind of pizza pie shaped type lot. And if you'll recall, one of the options that we had a bunch of houses here, but all the parking was down here. Which means if you were getting your groceries, you had to carry them from here to here. In this idea, we're trying to put parking right up front at each unit. So these are 4 duplexes. Each duplex has about 1,800, 2,000 square feet on a main level and lower level. So the main level is about 950, lower level could be a little bigger. I don't have floor plans, we can certainly get into that, but this is a footprint that we feel very confident that those type of square footages would fit in. Easily 2 bedrooms, most likely 3 bedrooms, just depending on how much square footage you want to allot to different uses inside the building. And using the slope to our advantage, I see these coming in on a main level. That's where your living room, maybe your master, dining room, kitchen, those type of functions. And then there's a staircase inside which goes down to a walkout basement. So the front piece of the lower floor is being used as your retaining wall. That eliminates gives us the advantage of pushing these units back down the slope a little bit, using that slope to our advantage to get habitable space underneath. And the other thing that it does, it creates a lower profile. So as you're coming from Boone on 321, this is a very prominent hill. So you see whatever's up there very clearly. So I'm trying to keep the profile of these not too tall, especially on the back side as you're coming around Main Street. But there's a number of different ways we can configure this. We've got 8 different units. We might be able to squeeze in a little more, but this seems very comfortable in terms of space between the units, sharing one common wall between each unit. And then we had a little leftover space, so we envisioned kind of a community space. This could be a basketball court. It could be just a gazebo and green space for children, because I think a lot of these are going to be potentially younger families with children. So providing some outdoor space, since they don't have individual yards and what they do have is slope, having a space to have a picnic, go outside, relax, and have children activities or adult activities for that matter out here. Really nice views from the back of these over Chatola Lake, so that's a really nice advantage. And then trying to keep all of this back off the road. We could have taken these and turned them, but then you're going to see the backs from the highway, and this is so steep and would be right on the property line because of the slope, not the setback line, I should say. We really want to put the more attractive side, hopefully the more attractive side, forward facing the public. Any questions?
What's your estimate, just ballpark, cost per square foot in this day and time, right now?
Shane and I were talking about that. That is so hard to answer. Pre-COVID, I could tell you exactly what I thought they were going to be. I think it's twice what it was. I'm not doing duplexes right now, but the single family custom homes that I'm doing, the cheapest house I'm doing, which is a nice house, don't get me wrong, is $500 a square foot. I've got houses that are $1,000 a square foot. So I don't know what you use. There's some economy of scale here, especially if you do more than one right now. There is a repetitious design, so you're not pricing each one individually. So you could probably get that cost down. I kind of told Shane that there's probably $400 a square foot out there if you look hard enough. But there's so many factors in that, Charlie, that in terms of materials, labor, is that off the mountain, on the mountain? So I would be hard pressed to give you a number.
So just following up on that number, have you given any thought to what it might cost to rent?
I've got that coming up.
Pardon me?
I've got that coming up, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
No, I just built and designed.
Yeah, that's David on the concept. I'll give you some more data in just a second that we put together.
So essentially, that's 8 units,
Yes, sir.
and they could be 2 to 3 bedroom.
Yeah, the only other thing I would mention, I think these are easily feasible too. If we didn't want to do all 8 at one time. Doug and I were talking the other day, something like this, you kind of want to build from the back forward. So I could see us doing, 1 or 1 and 2 as a phase 1 for proof of concept. But go ahead and put the infrastructure and the road in here. And then down the road, either to smooth out finances or something, we could add these 2 later and keep disruption to a minimum over here while these folks are occupying the units.
And you said those are how many square feet?
About 2,000 each, about 1,000 per floor, more or less.
Where would water sewer tie in? Main Street?
Water, sewer, Main Street. Sewer would be Main Street, water on 321. Yeah, up top. Again, not to downplay David's work, 'cause very appreciative, but we got a concept. We want to put something in front of you. So, if we really go down this road and we decide that we want to do, 1,600 square foot units or, 3, whatever the case may be, this is very customizable, of course, like building your own home or building your own, apartment complex, duplex, townhomes. Don't get too hung up yet on other than the site. We just wanted to show you what was possible with the site. And I'm very appreciative, David, putting this together because it gives us great visuals of what could be on this site. Like with anything real estate, this thing could be a million different avenues, different ways, et cetera. We talked a little bit about, this at the summer retreat without having a great deal of kind of understanding of what was potentially possible out there.
What was the price of this lot when we purchased it?
$427,000.
Are you going to speak in brief about the private-public partnership on this?
Yes. So keep the minds open as we're rolling through this thing. Here's the concept. We've talked a little bit. Again, we can go, I didn't want to, first thing in the morning, didn't want to give you a ton of information. I've got some stuff here. I can send you some stuff of what's out there. We would not be the first in doing this. I mean, this is not the child care center. So there's steps to this process if we go down this road, and then again, we're branching off and we've got 20 different options on how you do this, private, public, et cetera, that kind of thing. But throwing it out with the concept of employee housing, really just wanting to state and giving some updates for those that may not really understand what the cost of housing is currently in Watauga County. Because if you haven't bought a house in the last 4 or 5 years, you don't really know. Again, David knows it because he deals with it every day. But I mean, you're talking $1,000 a square feet for houses being built. That's a $2 million house. Nobody can afford that is working more than likely. These are crazy cost numbers. Potential cost and financing of this. Again, these are spitball. I think what Doug Chapman keeps, his term is spitballing some things up here. Site work. We put $400,000 up there. Again, this is our best estimate right now of this particular site. This doesn't have to be the site, but this is a site. Some grading, road work, landscaping, et cetera. This number could be 350, could be 450, but wanted to put some numbers out there to at least give you some stuff to kind of think about and talk about. If we did $400 a square foot, that's $800,000 a unit. If we did 2,000, we could do 1,600. We could do 1,500. There's a lot of different options that you can do there, but let's, for talking points, kind of talk through that. What we would do if we were to do this is that we would do like anybody else, and we would go out and get a mortgage, essentially. We would get an installment loan to be able to purchase or be able to fund the site work and the construction. We typically do things over 20 years. We don't do 30 years. Local government commission doesn't really like us to go beyond 20 years. So we used a 20-year amortization, at least for that first unit. And then after that, here's the units thereafter. But for 20 years, 1.2 million is about $85,000 cost. That's a interest and principal cost. 800,000 again per unit. That's about $60,000 annually. These are just numbers to put out there. to then talk about what could we potentially charge. If we charged $1,000 a month, again, this is all very doable, kind of conversations, then, 60 minus 12 is 48. We're going to add some maintenance costs, et cetera, in there. We're going to have some upkeep and things that we have to do each year to keep going. Whether or not we incur or put into place utilities, more than likely we would want to put the utilities on the homeowner themselves, or at least pass on the cost to the renter. And again, our initial conversations have been about leasing these, not selling these or letting employees purchase these. These would be leases, so the town would own it. Advantageous to the town because real estate tends to be very appreciable in this area. Not a lot of real estate goes down. So if we were to build the concept, build phase one, build the first couple of units at X amount of money, then obviously we expect it to appreciate and us have ownership of that. So we're talking really, this is an annual operating conversation once we get past the concept, if we were to go down this road. Here's some potential numbers of what it would look like. We'll say roughly $50,000-ish, per unit is what it's going to be to the town. What we would need to do if we're even considering heading down this direction is, one, we've got to get in front of Representative Pickett. I say Representative Pickett, it could be Senator Heist, but we know Representative Pickett a little bit better and have a conversation with him. I have spoken to him about a potential local bill. We in North Carolina are not legally allowed to build housing. That goes way, way back. So what you have to do is get a local bill put into place. This is just one example of one that was put in way back in 2009. There's been a lot since then. The reason I put this one in here was because it authorized the city of Brevard, the town of Roseman, Transylvania County, and the Board of Education. The city of Brevard is actually who led this way back in 2009. And I've got some things that I can share with you all that they're still talking about. Housing in Brevard is broken, and here's what the city officials are doing to fix it. These are articles way back when, putting into perspective what they were trying to do. They were talking about this 16 years ago and saying, housing just isn't feasible for our employees, it's not feasible for our teachers, it's not feasible for our essential workers. Across the state of North Carolina, you will see local bills that have been put into place in places like Durham and Dare and Hendersonville and Henderson County and others. Each one of these are a little bit different. Some incorporate everything within the county. Some are just strictly for a town or for a county. And some are for strictly teachers, or some's all of them. So when I was talking to Representative Pickett about it, a thought would be, if we want to go this road, it would need to be put into session, which has started, so we've got time. We've got a few months here. But we would need to introduce it and figure out, do we want to be the ones that are, tacking our name only on this, or do we want to have any kind of partnerships? It may be easier for us to roll with just us to start with versus trying to incorporate others within the area. But this was just an example that I wanted to put out there of, if we were to even think this concept is a viable concept, we need to start with getting a local bill put into place and getting the legal authority to do so. Then backing up to what could be, from either this perspective or any other perspective, is really open for a whole lot of dialogue, because Brevard, for instance, set up a housing trust that they put town funds into, but they also accept outside funds that can either be donated or it can be through the in-kind services of contractors. So partnering up with a contractor is something they've done. They've really focused recently on providing housing to teachers. So that's gone in a different direction with them. But unlike the Child Care Center, which is still one of the first in the state, this one has been duplicated. It's been done out there. We just don't have any real examples in this area of it being done. That being said, we're no different than Brevard was 16 years ago or any other place. We're dealing with a housing shortage, something that Pete hears quite often. Is about every EDC meeting, it comes up as being the number one priority with trying to figure out, how do we provide affordable housing? And that's not, low income housing. That's just housing for people that are working and serving here. Something that used to be the case in the town, this is where Doug and I have had conversations over breakfast, is that a majority of the town worked and lived in the town. And then today we have nobody that works in the town but doesn't live in the town. And it really is becoming that way for the entire county, where we're seeing, again, over half of our total employees that are living outside of the county. Most of that's in Wilkes and Caldwell and Tennessee that are driving over. simply for the fact that those numbers that I showed you to begin this conversation just isn't feasible for hardly anybody that's working. It's just a tough thing. And inventory is almost non-existent. As of last night, when I was pulling that data, I was pulling it from 6 homes in Blowing Rock. So that tells you just the demand that's out there, and continues to be even greater each and every month, it seems like, for just folks wanting to move in here. So the point of today was, again, to kind of open up those minds and have the conversation a little bit more tacked on to what we talked about from the summer session, and just wanted to get some thoughts and feedback. And I'll let, Doug, if you want to say anything towards this. I know we've talked about it quite a bit.
Well, what brought this to mind is I was looking at that piece of property over there and trying to think of a good use that the town could to do with it. And I started thinking and got David involved and Shane involved and started thinking, well, with what we have with the daycare, of how we've been able to recruit some very good people who have came to Blowing Rock because we have a daycare. They have a place, because the two most expensive things going on in North Carolina right now is affordable housing and daycare. And so this would give us a chance to get some employees back inside the city limits, to be able to, recruit, retain. Right now, these things are popping up. A lot of towns and cities are looking at them right now. Charlotte's getting ready to build a thing. It's called Teacher Village. They are hurting for teachers down there so bad. They are building housing down there, and it's for teachers only. And it's going to be, right now, the name of it is Teacher Village, So you're seeing these things. It's hard to get employees. And just like Shane said, half our employees don't even live in this county. We're having to go so far away now to be able to recruit people to work here. It'd just be nice you take a lot of pride when you have something of your own. This may not be their own because we are looking at leasing it is what we're looking at. But you still, you take pride. You've got that nice place. A lot of them are living with their parents right now because they don't have a choice.
Yeah, real stories. Again, not to further. I think you've heard some of these. We have employees that are living with others. We have employees that are living with other employees. We have employees that are living in with parents. We've got. Some of the department heads over there can give you stories. So it's a real issue, of course. I don't know, what the county is going to do or the town of Boone is going to do. They haven't done anything at this point. So not that necessarily they won't get something done, but as we talked, this continues to become an issue. Department heads can tell you as they're recruiting people, it's a number one concern is finding housing of any sorts. I don't know of anyone in recent memory that we've recruited that either, if wasn't from here, actually moved here. More than likely, they moved to Caldwell. That's our go-to right now, and it's starting to get difficult to even move down there. So it continues to be an issue, continues to be a problem that we're seeing. We're very fortunate to have the work staff that we have dedicated to, come in at 2 a.m. if they need to from 45 minutes away or wherever the case may be. But this is a concept that I think is worth discussing.
I think this is a great conversation. We went to Doug and Melissa and I went to a conference last April in Winston-Salem that the North Carolina League of Municipalities had. And they had a breakout session on affordable housing. It was, and so it's not just here, but I think could be more significant here just because of the price of real estate. And so that leads me to ask the question, what is affordable? What is affordable? And it's different for different geographic regions, but for our employees, what is affordable? And would this be affordable?
Again, I want to just again, these are, what I put out here are a concept, right? So where do I put I put here, that's $1,000 a month. Again, this thing is so customizable to what we charge and all of it, what we build, what we charge, how we do it, that kind of thing. So some places, and I can tell you from Brevard's standpoint, that goes way back, is they have their own internal scale based on salaries and what's being charged. There's that concept that's out there. At the Child Care Center, we didn't go that much in depth. We just went straight, what's the average cost of housing? Let's divide it in half, and we went with that rate. So, everything in between can be, put into perspective or put into play. This, like the Child Care Center, is essentially a benefit. I mean, if we do this, it's a negative number that we're paying for. What we charge up top there, you can see, obviously, even at $1,000 a month, it's not giving us a great deal of return on this. Ultimately, we own the property continues to appreciate. If this thing doesn't work out, then I'm assuming at that point we decide and publicly we sell the property or go down the road of selling the property with property on it, with homes or townhomes on it. This can be done in so many different ways. We could customize this, starting at whatever number you want to start at and working that way. And there's examples out there. This, again, unlike the Child Care Center, we've got some examples for us to throw out there that we can look at. And then get into rules and things if we terminate an employee. I mean, we're not recreating the mold in this one, not creating the mold.
Okay, I'm gonna be devil's advocate here. I've been in business for years. You do this for one employee, how do you compensate the other employee that's not benefiting in this manner? That already has a home, that's paying a mortgage. How do you compensate that other employee that cannot take advantage of this?
We don't compensate them for daycare.
No, you don't. You don't, but this is a bigger nut to crack.
But I mean, I'm just saying.
I know that. And this is a bigger nut to crack because you have devoted employees that are paying mortgages now. And now you build this, and there's got to be some equalization here financially.
I would see this more as a transitional piece to employment where,
I don't know.
well, no, I'm
Just
saying
the thought.
you could use it as that for a hiring purpose. This is used for new employees coming into the area, not for established employees.
Well, I'm saying you're going to really have to nail this one down.
Well, let's start with the legal side of it. So legal side, are we allowed to do this? We get a local bill put in place? Yes, we are. Do we, can we restrict it to certain things, certain areas? It gets tricky within that. So it needs to be open. Can it be transitional? Can we put something into place that this is a, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, whatever the case may be? There's examples out there of that as well, to Melissa's point. There's others out there where it's permanent. I mean, they're in there for years, kind of a thing. So, there's all kinds of examples out there, and whether those examples equate to equality or not is all over the board. I mean, it's just different within that. Pete?
So essential services like police, fire, EMS, comment?
I mean, I know I have officers that have left the area and quit the department because they can't find a place to live. So, I mean, I think it would definitely be utilized, not only from my department, but I'm sure from other departments as well.
And again, it is so wide open. The same language can be put in for essential. It can be put in for as vague as you want to be. I mean, we've got examples of it out there, of what's out there. It's the last few years, if you go to the league or if you go to the County Commissioners Association, if you go anywhere across the state to Cat's Point, Doug and others, it is the number one topic that's being talked about for the most part, especially from, sessions on what's out there, what's being done. Your big cities have been doing this for a while in so many different ways. Again, but this goes back 16 years ago, so this was the small town of Brevard that kind of started this one way back when. This was not the first one that was done by town that I could find research-wise. There's a lot of flexibility, options, et cetera, to do a lot of different things. There's a ton of different examples out there.
I understand what you're asking, and the point you're bringing up, maybe we could look at other municipalities like Brevard, or how does Charlotte envision their, teachers' village and to be fair? And what have they done?
I mean, like Melissa did say, you look at new employees, their pay scale's less, maybe so, but, I mean, I'm just saying, that's gonna be something that's gonna come up. And so, prepare to cross that bridge when it comes up.
Yeah, and it is, to Melissa's, what she had said, it is really, her concept is to verse this as her idea of affordable, their pay versus what can they afford, but this is not selling them a house. This is not something that is meant for them to really be permanent. Well, everybody's dream is you own something, so this is, not a hand up, but a lift up. Here's you something that maybe you can afford while you're here to start with, while you're trying to find something else here. The capacity of
It's a hell of an
houses or
expense to
anything.
taxpayers.
is fine.
That's a hell of an expense to taxpayers as well.
Oh, yeah.
We look at the numbers like we looked at the other day for water, sewer.
Like I said, we're not saying this is now. I mean, we're
I
just,
know, but I'm just,
this is putting out,
devil's advocate,
it's thinking outside the box.
The other devil's advocate to that side for the taxpayers is too, is that a lot of our staff has been here in that 10 to 15 year span.
Mhm.
They're gonna be phasing out, and we're gonna need a whole new group coming in. Where's that group gonna come from if we have no housing for them to move into? And if we don't have new employees coming in, we don't have people running our town.
increase pay. You increase incentives, you increase pay. Yes, this is an incentive. But you also increase pay, and we will see that. We will see increase in salaries moving forward,
Increasing salaries is still affecting taxpayers.
of course. And yes, that's right. But you have to do that anyway. So,
But if you can balance the two to make it better for the employees,
I don't disagree with you. I'm just throwing it out there. There'll be pushback. And be prepared. We need to have a good plan in place that details it all.
Well, we will. If we go down this road, we always have a good plan, right? So we always make sure we have a good plan in place. And there's always pushback, especially in this town, and that's just part of what we do if this is the direction we want to go. There's a lot here to iron out. Again, I didn't even talk about this in the beginning. What really started this conversation, or what we started talking about, for examples, this goes back 20, 30 years ago out west with your ski, et cetera, right? They've been doing this stuff all over. So from Jackson to Vail or whomever, there's tons of examples of different things they've done. A lot of that's seasonal. We're not seasonal from our worker standpoint. So us looking at it from a seasonal perspective, and we talk about that. Some of us have about, can we do something seasonal? We're not a seasonal town anymore. We're full service. We've got 85 employees here all the time working 24/7 to do things. So that's where we kind of started getting out into some of these other areas and trying to figure out what examples were out there and what's being done. I can envision if we're nodding our head that we want to maybe go down this road, we need to make a field trip or two and kind of get some feels and see what's out there and some conversations. But, before we can even really go too far down the road, we need to talk just about next steps and what those next steps may look like. Whether we're, if we get something like this into place this session, and that would be more than likely by summerish timeframe, this doesn't require us to do anything. It just gives us a legal right to do anything. Right now, we don't have the legal right to do any of this. I mean, from a building, et cetera standpoint. So we're in that conceptual phase. That can go a lot of different directions. But in my opinion, from a professional standpoint, if we're going to even go down this road, next steps wise, this has got to be a piece of it. We got to have this in there at some point. If we don't do it now, then obviously we're talking next year. That's fine too, but we got time within the General Assembly that we have to kind of think into their calendar as well. Long session just started, and short session would be this time next year or April next year. But just want to get some feedback and thoughts on
I think the concept is good. But, I mean, it was done here, as Doug and I can attest to, it was done here by private business years ago. The Mayview Manor, the Green Park, the Country Club, the farmhouse, all had housing for their employees. So, I mean, it's been done by private business for years. And I'm sure these other places have come up with great plans, and we just need to look at those plans and determine is it cost effective, is it doable?
I know it makes sense to use land that is ours, that we've already purchased. This is just me. I just don't like that lot. But because it's so visible when you drive up, and maybe it looked great, you know, maybe it would look beautiful, and it does look really nicely laid out. But then I start thinking, are there other properties around town that we might look at? I know we've talked about some, you know, if we were gonna do a parking lot or something. But that was just a question that came up in my mind.
Sure.
And, you know, if there were other properties, how much more expensive would they be than what we paid for this, you know?
Maybe more, maybe cheaper. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, all up in the air, of course, within that, for sure. But, yeah, we were just, we made a very conservative effort to throw something up a stick, and I think it's really good, and I'm very appreciative of David and the work that's up there. But yeah, this thing can go a whole lot of different directions and a whole lot of different avenues potentially within that.
I think, I'm not real fond of the term affordable housing in this context. I think this is workforce housing.
Sorry.
I
I agree.
And I think that terminology really says a lot. This is not just for anybody. This is for our employees. And I think the thing that really to remember is the costs that don't show up on a profit loss balance sheet type of report. Just like with the academy, is what is the cost to replace these folks that can't afford to live here, that an officer we spend $100,000 on to train that walks off because they can't find a place to live. That makes it much easier to justify this project. And I would like to see us move forward with the groundwork. If that's exploring a local bill, if that's exploring more detailed cost about this, timelines, things of that nature. That doesn't cost a lot, mostly our time.
Right.
And I think it would put us in a more informed position to make decisions.
Okay. Other thoughts and
That's my motion, non-motion.
no action taken?
Yeah, and at least moving forward with this part right here, because it doesn't say we're doing anything or not doing anything. It just gives us
The ability.
the ability and the option, you know, just one part of it, you know, and while we're exploring other ideas, at least we know that we can do it then, because, you know, if you get this passed, you can. If you don't get this passed, there's no use in going forward because we can't do anything, you know, so.
Well, and I agree with what Melissa was saying. This is forward thinking for the, you know, excellent function of our town.
I don't know, and again, I don't, you know, my job is to give you information and share it. This one's a tough one. It's a tough one overall because we're in an area that everybody is continuing to want to be in, and that's why we're all here, and that's a fantastic thing. I don't think any of those numbers I showed you are going to go anywhere except for up. We've never seen it other than go up. So it's going to become more and more and more of a conversation and question of how do you fix this? I mean, how do you get to that point? And I know, again, we're a couple decades out from what Colorado and others have been dealing with for a long time out there, when you've got your, multi-million-dollar homes being built, taking up workforce housing that was there prior to that. So it's a
Well,
difficult thing.
Keep in mind, Grandfather Mountain Country Club, Diamond Creek, they provide housing for their employees because they're using the, what's the term? The overseas workforce.
They use the
Visa.
international workforce.
International, yeah, they can work 6 months. So my whole point was we have to make it where it's fair to all and it's good for the community, for the employees, all the employees. That's my whole point, okay?
I think we all agree that what makes our town great is our employees. And anything we can do moving forward to help retain people or bring new people in, like you were talking about, Melissa, I think we need to explore those possibilities. Because like you say, Shane, prices aren't going to go down. So anyway.
Well, I'm hearing that my charge is going to be, staff's charge is to start working with the General Assembly on putting together a proposed local bill for this long session. And then we'll see what happens from there. We'll see, one, if
Do they
our
request any details or are they just an overview?
overview and just a conceptual, so if it goes into committee or conversation, just some information behind it of what's bringing it. I did speak to Representative Pickett, not to put him necessarily on the spot, but these have become more and more common, so I don't think it's going to stand out, so to speak. I think it's something, if he feels and Senator Heiss, who's our two representatives, feel strongly about moving this forward in the local bill sector, then they'll move it forward, and we'll see how that.
Question.
Certainly.
The state does fund employee housing.
What do you mean by that? Employee housing, like state employee housing or?
State employee housing, they don't, not for companies or corporations. But there is funding out there, I'm told, for housing for communities. Now, is that affordable? Which I agree with David. I don't like that term, affordable housing.
Yes, so I'm gonna say very, very similar to the child care center. So if we were to be sitting here today talking about this concept being an open concept for, we're going to designate X percentage of this to the public, and X percentage of this to the employees, that's a conversation we can have. That opens up some funding that's out there. And there's ratios there of what that looks like. Typically, it's at least half of it, if not a little bit more. And that is something that's very common.
Our whole.
Right. That is very common that's out there.
Well, and one of the things too, that some of them have been able to use, Winston-Salem, for example, was able to do theirs with combination with the State Employees Credit Union at a 0% interest loan. So they were able, the Employees Credit Union worked with them and gave them, that was a savings, a huge savings right there when you figure over 20 years, your interest right there. So, there's possibilities out there, that you can explore and try and find,
Yeah, State Employees Credit Union's had a program in place the last couple of years to try to provide 0% interest loans for this exact thing. And a lot of it's been geared towards teachers recently because of the push. And their largest base holder for the most part are teachers. So to Doug's point, I kept saying that we can go a lot of different directions with this because of a lot of different things. There's so many places doing so many things differently. I put probably some very, very conservative, big numbers out there that more than likely would be different once we got into it, depending on what avenue we went. From a state's perspective, anything state, or really you're talking, that's federal money that's coming down through the state HUD that's coming down. It's going to have some piece of it, and probably a majority piece that's going to have to go open to the public.
And we tend to lose some control.
We lose a lot of control at that point. And that's kind of what we went through with the child care center was we today as a 5-star center could open that thing up to the public and receive, a tremendous amount of funding, but we lose control over it. and we lose control of who we, who can access it, who can participate in it. One thing that we didn't want to do on the Child Care Center is compete with the private market, which we didn't feel like we were. We saw the numbers that, 600 kids, 200 spots, right? So we're like, the ratio's there. Again, we don't feel like we're competing with the private market here. I mean, if there's a developer out there that wants to build houses up here, he or she can build a house and sell it pretty quickly.
And back to,
So,
go ahead.
oh, excuse me. How would you suggest or propose a private-public partnership? How would you do that to let people know that there might be an opportunity?
The easiest one is can we find a contractor that's willing to partner with us and charge us cost or something around that number? That's an easy one that's out there. There's many different options to that. Again, there's other places where a contractor comes in, developer comes in, and they own this, or I don't think we want to go that direction. That's something, even on our initial conversations, and I've reached out to some developers and contractors. Some of them have said, oh, we absolutely could do this for X amount, but they want to have ownership of it. They want to lease it, rent it, make money off of it. We don't, again, that's taking the purpose a little bit skewed into losing control over it, because then we lose the control of what they charge and et cetera. I envision this being, can we find contractors willing to work with us on a cost perspective, and what that return looks like yet to be determined for them. But can we find someone that's looking? Brevard's got a good mix of different things where they set up a housing trust, and we may be doing the same thing. We may set up a separate fund. Tasha's ears perked up. That would be the housing of the money that we were to put in there to build this. But that also is available for donations. It's available for a lot of different things. There was a couple that just passed away in Transylvania County and donated $400,000 when they passed away to the housing trust to go to teachers for this. So we can open that up as well and have that conversation. So creating a trust is a very good option that is done very often to be able to house multiple different facets of revenue that's coming in and opportunities there. But you legally can't do a trust until you do the local bill. So that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of different options here. And I would prefer, in the next few months as we go down this road, if the local bill is happening, I'm going to request to make some field trips to some of these places and see hands-on what's going on, what lessons learned and what landmines were stepped on and that kind of thing, because it's been done out there for the last 15, 20 years. So we can definitely get some good information and share some good information.
And the newest place that's coming online is ASU is just finishing a place for employee housing. They're one of the first ones in the county, and going to your point of what you said, and this is not taken away. Any large employer up here is going to have to think about it. The hospital's going to have to think over there. To be able to keep nurses and doctors over there, they're going to have to start providing some housing on the property. ASU's looking at, they're having to do it. Any large, right now, employer is going to have to look. If they want employees, they're going to have to provide some housing.
Samaritans first do that. They do, don't they?
Some.
Yeah, executive housing's been around for a long time, and now you've seen it trickle down into just in workforce housing, employee housing. So, all right, I got enough head nodding to say, Shane, reach out to your local representative, have a conversation with him about potentially putting the local bill into place. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for thinking outside of the box first thing on a Friday morning after almost 20 hours of dialogue and discussion and conversation in the last couple of days. We good to keep moving, Charlie? Good. Good. All right. Up next, board appointments. So our clerk will come in just a few moments, and she's got packets of information for you. Hillary, help me one thing I didn't get a chance to get to this morning. We had a little computer technical difficulty, so I forgot to ask this question. On the TDA board, we have 2 seats, both lodging. 1 seat was opened from Tarbutton. Is that a full seat, or is that,
Yes.
so 3 years?
Yep.
Perfect.
Because he would have been,
Yes.
and so Tracy, they have 1 meeting without him. So that there's no point in putting someone in for 1 meeting, so.
Perfect. So here are our open seats. Planning board, we have 3 open seats. 2 of those are regular or 3-year term seats. One is a currently open seat that was vacated by Greg Bergstrom, which has a year left. So we need to fill 3 seats. 2, and we'll have to do this, and again, somewhere I think on the next slide, we do this at the February meeting. Today is a chance for you to get them, look at them, read them at night, maybe tonight, tomorrow night, spend your couple hours on a Friday or Saturday night looking through your packets, making sure that you're good with what's out there. But no, seriously, then you can ask questions, et cetera. But we've got this in there, Melissa, hang on, it's coming.
Oh.
We got a sheet for you. Hillary's got it summarized, perfect, highlighted, good. Packet's coming, but just for the public, just to say, planning board, 3 seats open, 2 or 3-year terms, one's a 1-year term. All of these are in city limits. We don't have anyone that's in the ETJ. TDA board, we got 2 seats, both are lodging. We did change the ordinance this past year, if you remember, to allow for representatives of lodging establishments, general managers, that kind of thing. And you'll see that in your packet. Board of Adjustments, 2 seats open, 1 regular, 1 alternate. Everything's 3-year terms except for that 1 planning board. ABC, 1 seat, that's a 3-year term. PLARB, that's what we're calling it, 2 seats, 3-year terms. You have more than enough to fill all of these except for PLARB. So just FYI, you'll see that in a few moments. But you've got more applications than seats. So we've got the ability to deliberate and discuss and vote on. Yeah, PLARB's not the hot ticket. We're gonna have
I
to.
think we need to rename Clark, Corey. I don't think they know what it is.
TJ,
ETJ, no, Board of Adjustments is even alternate. Yeah.
okay.
So I will say of the open seats, the ones that are open, they have reapplied in the planning board, the TDA, the one that's still there. Board of Adjustments has reapplied. ABC did not reapply. So we'll have some new members on the board here, but we did have some reoccurring reapplications that took place. Hillary, if you will come up and dole out the packets.
Come on down.
Together a summary on top. So I was watching you type. I was, well, we got it.
They are in order.
You know me and my notes.
I know.
In front, I've highlighted who's up. So then that will be planning board, Board of Adjustment, ABC, TDA, and we had 0 applications for PLARB.
Lord,
Nobody. I had one.
nobody knows what it
They
is.
don't know what it
Yeah, I was
is.
just saying what it is.
I had one man send me an email inquiring about it, but he's not a resident yet. He has a home, but they don't live here full-time. And we do say that they have to be full-time residents. So I told him, when you move here full-time, contact me back.
We
Corey will need you.
still do have a consensus, a quorum on PLARB. So we have 7 members. So if we don't fill these 2 seats, we still have 5. Just FYI, we can still meet. We just have open seats there. So we're good on the having the quorum issue there. But these are the packets. Everything should be in there. If you don't see something, have questions on it, of course, start with myself or Hillary and
And
ask
if you do
questions.
get them mixed up, they do have on the bottom of their application what board they're applying for. And if they applied for multiple boards, they did
That was my
separate
next question.
applications.
Yep, so you got packets with information, and the applications. Be thinking of questions for us, if you have any, as you're going through it, if there's clarity questions, that kind of thing, we can ask of the applicant prior to the February 11th. That is February the 11th, as the mayor has stated multiple times, that is a Tuesday, second Tuesday, always second Tuesday. We never do meet on Monday, even though the calendar said we're gonna meet on Monday. Second Tuesday, February the 11th, 2025, we will vote. And we'll make you sign your voting ticket as well. That was always a thing with Albert.
Albert knew what the sign is.
I refused to sign, he said.
But you always knew who it was.
From the individual that spent 20 years on the board of
Because
elections.
it
Yeah,
Yeah.
Thank goodness I've
Process
been
of-
purged already.
yes. Yeah.
Do we not require all these to be full-time residents?
Voting, yeah. You got somebody that's not. They check that down? That's not good?
You see, I saw one too. The chick, not a full-time resident.
He's already on the board. He's already on the board.
Yeah.
We can ask, so one thing that I didn't put up here, we can get attendance records if you want to see those. You know, we've asked for those in the past of anybody that's re-upped. We did not incorporate it into this packet, but we can get attendance records for the February meeting. We get it to you prior to that, if there's anyone that's re-upped, to make sure that, you know, you see that they're being responsible and attentive towards it.
We definitely like that.
Yeah. I'm almost positive last time he absolutely checked, yes, he's a full-time, so he's on the board now. He's currently on there.
Yeah. That's fine.
We can double check.
Just-
But he's never missed a meeting as far as I know.
Yeah.
We'll double check.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Shane,
Well, it's two of them, Shane.
Mhm.
do we have?
Next one, right behind it is check the
Yeah,
same
I'll
box.
send it to you.
Yeah, I wonder if they just
I don't think we've had any problem.
did that in error,
Anybody?
you know?
It comes to mind.
How do you do that in error?
You see that?
Well,
I mean,
you
that's
know,
two questions.
long night.
Yes, but because she's, this is.
I come, oh,
On
break.
the TDA, so on the TDA, you do have a application in there or two from a representative.
That's right.
So they aren't
That's
full-time, yes, so they aren't full-time.
Yeah.
These are people that work here, that are general managers here, so you'll
Right.
see that in there. That was a change in the ordinance, so that's allowed.
Yep.
And also, sorry, I should, when you said TDA, there's one application, we had the 24th deadline. There's one application that applied after, and I told her she had to indicate, and it is up to y'all, if you do not want to accept it, you do not have to, because it was after the deadline. So we put this out in November.
Mhm.
So they had from November till the 24th to apply, and she was late, so I
This
didn't.
was TDA.
PDA. And you'll see it, it's up in the corner. She wrote that she applied on the 27th. So that's up to you. If you don't want to accept it, you do not have to. But we weren't gonna make that call. We wanted y'all to have it.
Hey, Shane, here, come here.
Exactly, good answer, yeah. Good answer.
Yes, that's all that. Oh, yeah. That's all that. Read the whole thing. I was like, okay.
Who's the place with the bottle?
Yeah.
You know, that's what I was just showing Shane.
Okay.
We've learned a lot about Susie Green, haven't we?
So noted.
Yes, sir.
Please.
Yeah. Shane, why don't we take a 15-minute break?
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
back in session, Mr. Fox.
Okay, so we are about 5 minutes behind schedule, but right on time for the most part. What we have left is kind of this hodgepodge potpourri. I put here IT, other items, and then prioritization for 2025, and really beyond 2025. A lot of stuff we've talked about has been not necessarily for this year, but it's planning this year into the next years. Start with an IT update. Thomas is here as well, but I can give you an update on a few things we've talked about in the past, and then a couple things that you haven't really been made aware of. But we'll start with what you haven't been made aware of, because that always gets everybody's attention, and it's a good thing. We're always looking for grants and opportunities. John Warren took it upon himself to have a discussion with the state on potential money that was out there for electric charging stations. We've been successful in the past with our ChargePoint accounts, which is at the bottom of the Legion. That's a partnership between ChargePoint and Blue Ridge Electric. And we make money off of those, about $9,000 to $10,000 a year in profit. Those were put in by grant monies that were paid for by the state through the Volkswagen settlement. So some of you remember this terminology. Well, that money's still out there, some of it. And so John started this by getting an email from the state, because he was kind of the go-to or point the first time on would the town be interested in potentially putting more charging stations in. And what that led to was there's money out there, and we've been given at least an email as of today that says if we would like to move forward with 2 new charging stations, one, they would like to put it on the Maple Street lot because there's power and connectivity down there. 2, it is no charge to us, that the installation of these charging stations.
Good update yesterday. There is a charge. That's what John told me yesterday.
Okay.
It's called North Carolina, but it's not necessarily the state. So he's working through that, but he told me yesterday.
And he has. So an email this morning back from them, I just read, that takes away the $8,600 charge that was out there. That was a $15,086. So if we narrow it down to the 2 stations and not the higher end of the chargers, there's no charge to us. So from yet to be, I need to get more information to you is the point, but I wanted to give you an update because we just got the email this morning that confirmed that we could move forward with 2 new charging stations. They prefer the Maple Street lot because of connectivity there. Again, it would be a similar type partnership. So working out the details, just wanted to put that on your radar. Looks to be free. Conversation we had was there was an $8,600 charge if we wanted to get a higher end. I may bring y'all some options is my point coming up if we want to move forward with any additional charging stations to be put in town. Those have been successful. These would be quicker. These would be faster chargers regardless of, kind of what we're looking like there. But nothing's set in stone, but just wanted to give you kind of the update on the charging stations since that's kind of been in the last couple of weeks. We're waiting on some details and information. We haven't signed anything, had agreed to anything. That'll come before you all, of course, but just wanted to give you that update because that wasn't something that we kind of was given to us, so to speak.
Did they have a second location for those?
They talked about a second, well, they put 2 at Maple. They had talked originally about another location down at Brom at the deck, and I'll follow up as well, but that one seemed to kind of fall off the radar because of the cost factor. But they were looking to do 2 at the Maple Street lot is where they were looking to do, so. Just want to throw that out there, FYI, that's something between now and probably the February meeting, I'll get some information and nail it down, confirm. Any objections, us moving forward with that, at least bringing it to you? Again, in the past, we've been successful with 2 we have, and they bring us about $9,000 to $10,000 a year overall, profit. So it's not a cost to us. The real cost of putting those in is putting them in. They're $150,000 or so to put them in, so. That's coming. That wasn't something that we had originally talked about, and I was kind of waiting on some emails to bring up where that located. Same conversation about grants. You did receive an email back a couple months ago where Thomas had applied for the $75,000 cybersecurity grant through the state, and Thomas was successful in receiving that. So,
Good, very good,
yeah.
Thomas.
Huge deal because that pays for $75,000 not only of upgrades and IT security, it also pays for new equipment. So it does have an allowance in there for us to be able to buy new computers and things of that nature. So Thomas has been working with the state on putting together a budget and what that looks like. And any updates, Thomas, you want to give us on the $75,000 grant? And this does not have a match. This is free money. This is $75,000 to the town with no match.
Yeah, we've got a meeting next Friday to go over how reimbursement's gonna work. The majority of this $75,000 is gonna go to replacing everyone's computers. So we've got computers that are going on 8+ years old, which are quite outdated for modern work. And we're gonna be replacing numerous police department computers as part of this. They have quite a few that they use vehicles that are old. And then we have some cybersecurity upgrades on the software side, and part of this will be some employee training. I know they're all real excited about that. But that is a small requirement of this grant, is that we do some employee training on cybersecurity. But yeah, we've got 3 years to spend it, which will not be a problem. And starting next week, I think we'll be able to start getting it rolling after they tell us how to do reimbursement and all that stuff.
Very good.
Any questions?
Yeah, this really started with the IT, on cybersecurity, through the league, through the conversations that we have about every year of, there's never enough what you can do. So this will require some employee training. This year we did put in the 2-factor authentication with our accounts. Y'all went through that as well, making sure that you've got 2 different mechanisms there. So a lot of effort continues to go towards cybersecurity because of the reasons that we see every day on the news of out there, folks out there looking to try to get one up on us. Wi-Fi expansion, we have some additional spots that have been put into place. We still have some areas along Main Street that are there, but they get overly used. And Thomas, I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit on the Wi-Fi and just during peak times, the levels that are being used, et cetera, and the difficulties of that.
Yeah, so we've got our main parks covered: Memorial Park, Fort Hill Park, full Legion area, the parking deck beside the Legion, in front of Town Hall, down Park Street, down at Edgewood Cottage. That one's currently down. SkyVest is working on that. We've got it down the school playground parking area. The only couple of spots we haven't been able to get yet are kind of in the middle of Main Street and then down towards where Speckled Trout is. We're waiting on SkyVest and Blue Ridge Energy to come up with the best option to run those lines. They are both very open to working with us, so we're just kind of waiting to see how that's going to work. Probably this summer when that'll get done. But we've expanded out quite a bit, and everything seems to be going okay. I mean, thankfully, cell service is actually a little bit better in town. If you have AT&T, Verizon's still not good. So, any questions on the whole Wi-Fi stuff that we started on?
To Thomas's point, AT&T in the last year they've gone live on 2 new small cell nodes within town. One's at Sunset and Main Street, the other over at the Equestrian Horse Show grounds. Both of those provide much better service in that area. If you have AT&T, you've realized it, especially within the town center. Verizon continues to promise that they're going to be utilizing the same technology. Both Verizon and AT&T work directly with Blue Ridge because Blue Ridge owns telephone poles or power poles. And so what they're doing, if you look at the one on Sunset, you'll see at the top that little box that sits on top. It's a good sized box, but that's a small node. That's a cell tower that's up there. That's the technology they're using. Putting the big towers up is not necessarily what they're utilizing anymore. They're going up and down corridors and putting those boxes on top of power poles, which of course is allowable, and it's something they have a legal right to do so. So AT&T's put 2 into place. I was told last week by Kathleen Evans with AT&T, they do have plans to put another 8 within the town, mostly along corridors, 321, et cetera. Verizon continues to say they're going to do the exact same. They've been focused on Boone. They have just finished working with Blue Ridge on, I think, 32 locations in the Boone area. And then supposedly they're going to transition over to the Blowing Rock area, starting with 321 and downtown. I've yet to see any plans of exactly where those are going yet. But a lot of times we don't. Again, they don't necessarily have to go through us. They go through Blue Ridge, who owns the rights to the poles, to be able to do that. But we keep getting promises. What we've seen so far, not bashing one or the other, AT&T is more responsive right now in putting things out there, primarily because they have our FirstNet, or the government contract FirstNet, which is a multi-billion-dollar contract to build out a full system by the late 2020s, I think. Is that right, Thomas? So they are being funded by a multi-billion-dollar U.S. government contract to build out cell towers and small cell nodes all over the country to get full coverage for FirstNet. Now, FirstNet is something that we did introduce this year back in the summer. So that was something we didn't have this time last year, and we went with FirstNet. FirstNet, again, is a separate cell network just for first responders, fire and police and first responders, EMS included in that. We decided to make that switch back in July. Is that right, Nathan? I'm trying to think. August?
I think it was about July we went live with it, I think.
Again, those are low-cost ways of providing cellular and push-to-talk technology to our fire and our police and our public first responders. Fire had already gone to it. Kent just walked out, but they did it last year. The town went to it right before the storm. And anyone that was in town, the EOC during the storm, we utilized those push-to-talks almost more than we did on radios because they had better service during that time. So you're going to see FirstNet get built out more and more and more because of the demand and the charge that the federal government has put out there for them to do so. So the timing of the FirstNet, at least in my perspective, and Nathan and Chief and others and Blackburn can give us their testimony, was perfect because we utilized them extensively during the storm. Their coverage stayed up, even when some of our systems were suffering because of the storm that was going on. So AT&T and Verizon, those are the updates I have right now. AT&T continues to give spots and locations, and they're going to continue to build out. Verizon is promising that they're going to be building out as well, but I don't have anything confirmed with Verizon at this point, other than I do know they have just finished 32 spots in Boone and the surrounding areas. And again, this is my information from Blue Ridge Electric, who's partnering with them and allowing their access to be able to put there. Questions on cell service, AT&T, Verizon, Wi-Fi?
I will say too, and I know Thomas knows it, through risk management, what we're trying to do is set up a program for IT training, just like what we did with the police, what we've done with fire. And it will be, it's a free training, and once it's completed, it helps mitigate insurance costs.
Yeah, we're also got the league this afternoon. Anything we can do with the league, appreciative. This says other items too, but one of the things that we just found out about a couple weeks ago was another grant that Public Works, Matt Blackburn, and Tasha received for those shoring boxes to be able to help protect the guys. The league continues to do different things, creative things to provide us opportunities. Those are a couple $5,000 opportunities there, again, for us to be able to do some things. So anything we can do, we're always jumping on. The police department's got a great record in working with risk management, trying to reduce any issues or concerns that they have with how we conduct our business. But IT-wise, the other thing I was going to mention is the website. We've talked about the website for a while. And the conference chamber, the town council chamber room. We did put in the budget this year for the town council chamber updates to audio and video technology, projectors, et cetera. Thomas said we're expecting those quotes back in February of what that's going to look like, so then we can get the company started. So that's outsourced. We can't do that internally, but that'll be new technology. We had them price it from the Cadillac down, so we can have some decisions to bring to you all to make some decisions there. We do have a budget out there. We won't say what it is because we don't want to skew the cost estimates coming in, but we did put something in the budget this year to be able to replace some of that technology. The council chambers really was never intended to be used for what we're doing. COVID created that, so we went all of a sudden from never once recording anything to recording everything, kind of like the technology we have, here and the cameras you see over there. It all has evolved really quickly in the last few years, but we need to update the council chambers audio and video technology, of course. And then, also the control panels, et cetera, that Thomas uses. And so we've asked for quotes, and we should have those in February. And then on the website, same kind of thing. Thomas is working through a outside source of what that's going to look like to get our website updated. It needs to be a lot less than what we have now. It's an outdated website with a ton of information. We need an update website with less information that's easier to find is what we've asked for. That's kind of what the project is. We have way too much on there that's hard to get to unless you know where it's at. We want updated technology with a whole lot less data. Is that fair to say, Thomas? A whole lot less data. But things you need, trash pickup, you know, all the, we need to be able to go to the things you need. We don't need to have the ability to go in and find out what's in code 16 of the land use code on the front page. It needs to be hidden somewhere else. We don't need that kind of thing that's on there. Any other IT things, Thomas, that you can think of?
You want to talk about finance?
Yes.
Okay.
Forgot completely about probably the biggest project we've got.
Yeah, so Tasha and I and Shane and several other people, Harris Government, right?
Yes.
Is the current finance software that they've had probably over a decade.
15, 16 years, I think is what we're thinking.
So the software is outdated to the point where it is making their job harder and preventing us from doing some stuff we would like to do. And so they are working on replacing that with their modern version of their software. Harris Local Government is planning, August to October range to start implementing that. And it's not anything that they'll really notice on your side, but on back end side, it's gonna make their lives a lot easier. But that's a huge deal to switch over the entire finance system to a new system. So that's gonna be a long transition period.
Yeah, we did put that in the budget. That's in the budget this year. There'll be a second phase next year. If you recall, it's a 2-phase budget process. But yeah, to Thomas's point and Tasha's point, huge process. They've already started. They're working. I mean, they've been working on it now for months on their end. It's a lot of work on the back end. It's a lot of work on that conversion. And then everybody crosses everything, and we hope the day it goes live, everything's working, and it won't. There'll be some snafus and issues because there always has been. And that's why we don't switch softwares. Accountants, I can speak for one as being the former one, we don't like change. We don't like things to be messed up. We don't want to take the chance on messing it up. There is nothing like messing up, potentially like changing your entire software program. So we want to get through the summer, get through budget, get through the beginnings of audit before we flip a switch and hope nothing goes wrong. But it will. That's okay. They'll fix it. That's what they do. But new software is something we've talked about at least every year since I've been here, and I think it's been talked about every year prior to that as well. What it will do, some features, not only compatibility with our other programs. Right now, our compatibility is non-existent. There's a lot of manual things that have to be done between RecDesk and other software programs. This makes all of it really compatible, gives us access not only to the new website, but being able to take payments online through the website. All these things that we can't currently do, we'll be able to do. Any other features? I mean, I know there's a lot. What comes to mind as being the prominent ones, Tasha or Thomas?
The online payments, having the capacity to just go to our website and be able to pull up and pay your water bill or your property tax bill. All of that will be online. We'll have the capability of being able to accept credit cards. So, trying to get into this decade.
Will that still, what will the fee be? Will there still be a fee?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The fees are charged through the credit card companies. Right now, we have a fee charged through Paymentus, but the credit card fees, whatever the company charges, we'll pass along to the consumer. We're not going to suggest to you all or the other taxpayers that we would cover that. That used to be a conversation, and it can be if you want it to be, but I don't think there's any place now that covers your fees. I mean, you go into these things knowing that, I mean, it's at gas stations. It's at, there's little notes there within that. So it's a typical thing. It's a cost of doing business if you want that convenience of doing business. If we start covering fees, then you're going to get into some potential good numbers there that we may want to, not get down that road with potentially of covering. We don't want to lose money on the process. So we don't currently have that ability. Paymentus, is that how we say it? Is our third party company, but we don't receive anything for that. They receive it. So that will give us, this new software gives us the ability to just have it all on the same platform and it can all be done the same way. Integrating payroll, I mean, it's a big deal. It's gonna make things a lot smoother when it's up and running. Much smoother, reports, data, that kind of thing. So, but a big deal. I mean, it's a big transition for sure. What other questions on IT? Trying to think of anything.
Does that, the new system data map, all our old information and retain it?
Yeah, how many years does it pull over?
So I think actively on the system, we will have 2 years history in utilities and the ledger. Property taxes will have 10 years as required. But then Thomas is working with us. We will have everything backed up on our current server. So we will still be able to access all the historical data that we currently have in the system. So, which is more than 10 years, I'm sure.
Talking about backup, while we're at it, one thing, I try to take opportunities to, as things come to mind, we were, again, spared for the most part during the hurricane, but our downtown and our computer system and our IT and the things that Thomas and others have put in place over the years, and I say Thomas because primarily in the last couple of years, he's made a great emphasis on backups, off-site location backups, moving things from town hall to the police department, from the police department to the fire department, et cetera. So we've got multiple off-site locations to back things up. Internet, we've got redundancy. We have 2 internet providers, right, Thomas? If one goes down, we have another. We never lost internet at town hall during the hurricane. We never lost internet at the PD in that area. I mean, that stayed up and running. We had issues with generators and issues with other mechanical stuff, but our systems were up and running. And I think most of y'all know that by Saturday morning, we're over there and that becomes our focal point and we're sending out information and communications. So just a chance to say thank you to Thomas. Things you don't see and nobody really cares about until you need them is the redundancy and the backups and all that stuff. But all that's in the last couple of years, there's been a tremendous amount of work that I know Thomas has done. And we've moved things from, what backs up from one place goes to the other and that place to the other and that place to the other. And it's all just a circle back around. But that paid off, obviously, very, very much so during the hurricane. That we never lost service. We kept our systems up, internet, et cetera. Very, very big deal. So thank you to Thomas and all the work that has gone into redundancy and the backup systems.
Out of curiosity, does the HARE system, it incorporates every department? So police, finance, parks and rec, everything?
Everything finance, yes.
So parking enforcement, work into that? It's a question.
More than likely, and I'll let Thomas answer the technical question. So if we were to go with parking enforcement software A or B or whatever the case may be, I believe with this new Harris, because it is updated, the conversation with the compatibility or the ability to bridge some of that. Will you talk through some of that?
It would work very similar to how our rec desk system is going to work on the recreation side. Your finances are separate. It's in its own little system, its own little parking or recreation system. And then it syncs at the end of the day. It's got a specific time period it syncs across. And so it is all within Tasha's side as well. Currently, that's kind of a manual process. And that's just based on how old her software is. So with this updated one, it should be more automatic. And it's just coming in every day. So yeah, it's all within one. They won't have to be jumping across into separate systems to deal with something like that.
We have every system for the most part the town has is much more updated than the finance system. So the problem has always been the finance system. It's not been rec desk, or it's not been, even if we did in park enforcement, any new software that comes in, the finance package was the problem because it was old and it didn't play well with anyone else. It was on its own and you had to manually do everything with it. So updating it creates compatibility instantly with everything else. So it's the problem, but it's also the nucleus. It's in the middle of all of it and it has to reach out and grab from everyone else. And current system doesn't do that and hasn't ever done that. So the new system will absolutely reach out and grab each day, multiple times if need. So if somebody pays their parking ticket online, which will have that ability, or whatever the case may be, then it's going to grab that at 6 o'clock every day and pull it down, have it posted, that kind of thing. That's the concept. So yes. yeah, the compatibility's always been the finance system problem, not the other, rec desk, same kind of thing, is what Thomas was talking about. Okay. Questions on IT? What about other things we haven't talked about? That could be a whole lot or nothing. We've talked about a lot. We still have more to talk about on prioritization, but what other things have we not talked about? Think of anything last
Go back to the
night.
website,
Yes.
revisions or enhancements. This may be too much detail to go into, but how are we determining information to take off that's, what is too much information? Do we have, how are we going about that?
So some of the stuff is gonna be stuff that is duplicate of what the TDA LoanRock.com has. That's the visitor site. That's where that type of information needs to be. A lot of that information on the town site is very outdated, where it's not near as fleshed out as they have it. So we're gonna direct any visitors to that site to get that kind of information. It's not removing stuff that citizens need. All that's absolutely still gonna be on there. It's gonna be structured better to where it's more clear what you're doing, where you're going. And the ability to find what you're looking for is going to be significantly better. The search now is completely busted.
So a lot of you websites, something Thomas is right, everybody uses Google. Everybody, my mom, everybody uses Google, right? So it's going to be very much like a Google feature. There's going to have that, you have that ability to type something in, start typing, and it's going to come up. That's wherever all the new websites are going to versus having a ton of information when you first go to it. There's going to be a simplistic side of it of you can start typing things in and it will go to it. But what we have on our current one is we built a website to give the same information the chamber had, same information the TDA have. This one's going to be more just a click. TDA, visitor information, or whatever it looks like, click on it and it takes you to that website. We don't need to recreate all the stuff they've done or the chamber's done or what other entities have done. We need more stuff on there about services, essential services, planning, zoning, that type of thing. We know that, so that's where that's going to be. But it's more Google-ish is what I call it. I've seen the example. There's a Google feature to it. You start typing something in and it comes up. It's really where everybody's kind of used to. Everybody's used to getting on your phone or on your laptop or computer and start typing something in that comes up.
And getting off the platform we're on now, we're gonna have a lot more freedom to be able to control what is on there and not on there. So if anyone reaches out and says, we'd really like this to be on there, we can do that a lot easier than how we can do it now. So, yeah, it's really about cleaning it up versus removing information.
Thank you.
Other items, other questions? What didn't we talk about?
Oh, any thoughts on, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Any thoughts on DOT? I know that's been discussed, us taking over Go Forth, part of Go Forth. Any other thoughts on that?
We had reached out to them, we'll say a year and a half ago-ish, and offered up the potential opportunity for you all. So again, backing up, so for us to take over a road, you have to agree to take over a road, right? So it would need to come for you all to petition and accept a road. DOT's in the business right now and have been for the last couple of years of giving up roads that are not in the corridors. So Go Forth and Wonderland makes sense because it's now in the center of all of our streets and has been for years. What we sent back to DOT after a walkthrough was a list of things we would like to see done before we took them over because we had some failing shoulders and some ditch lines and things like that. And then we wanted it paved. We just didn't want to take it over and instantly have $1 million or something that was going to need to be done on it. And so DOT was in those conversations. I have not talked to them since the storm. I don't know if they're still in those conversations or not. We can definitely reach back out to see if there's any updates on where we were with that conversation. But we had some good conversations. We'd worked with Representative Pickett and others on having that conversation. I don't know where the DOT currently is with the storm and where they're going to be with their finances moving forward. That may play a factor. My guess is that's going to play a factor into it, but our take, at least from a staff, we didn't feel comfortable bringing to you all something that was going to require instant money. We wanted to try to get that taken care of. And that's typical. We've taken over roads in the past and we've done the same thing. We said, we'll take it over, but bring it up to standard, pave it, et cetera. They've done that. In light of what we currently went through in the last 4 months, I don't know where they stand on any of those situations with roads.
Thank you.
We've done a great job of talking about infrastructure, water, sewer, sidewalks, all of these town-owned things. But I know that there are other maintenance items too. And we talked a couple of years about Station 1 needing a roof, dredging Mayview Lake, big type things. Are those type things in the budget, going to be coming in the budget? Do we need to discuss these type of maintenance items, deferred maintenance items potentially?
Yes, anything, so, we'll start with the budget conversation. Anything that we can put in the annual budget, and I say anything, 6 figures and less, low 6 figures and less, because anything above that really disrupts the annual budget from a revenue standpoint. We got to figure out how to offset that expense. Anything that's $100,000 or more, we really need to think how we pay for it. We've been talking, and I'll flip the board over in a minute on, and I've got it on the spreadsheet too. We know we've got some updates that are needed in places like Broyhill or Devant and some of these things like what you're kind of referring to there. These are big ticket items, as in several $100,000 potentially later down the road, depending on kind of how we go within this. A lot of that stuff makes sense put in the bond package. We put a bond package together and we put X amount of money in for deferred maintenance. Buildings, roofs, that kind of thing, if it's needed, then we need to put it, in the budget moving forward for you guys to consider. And that's going to be coming up in this next year budget with some of that stuff. The longer term, bigger picture items, we've got some of that already built into some of these things we'll talk about here in a minute about long-term bonds and what that looks like.
I really enjoyed and appreciated seeing the outlays for equipment, for public works, for landscape, and would love to see a similar thing for our physical buildings. When we need a new roof, when we need new bathrooms in town hall, kitchen, whatever. These are things I would think that we know we need, and create a schedule for those so that we can start anticipating and plug them into our fancy spreadsheet.
100%. Putting the fleet schedule together, sitting down this past year, and that was, once I was kind of rolling back into things, we started talking through, let's get a fleet schedule together, just sit down and kind of think through. We need to do the same thing for the buildings, because if we go through, we know where we can go through and take an inventory of our HVACs, and we take an inventory of our roofs. We can put a number on those things, of course, every 8 years, every 10 years, whatever that may be, 100%. We can have that as a part of this budget. That's not a hard task to have, and put that out there as well. And for the bigger ones that are more substantial, we'll think about how we go about paying for that. The others, if we can build in 50,000 or 75 or 100,000 a year for some of these things, we absolutely need to. Yeah. We in the past have not been, in government, we're not alone, but we've been guilty of not being as forward thinking with our maintenance. Later down the road, we've been more reactionary towards one year to the next, et cetera. And that fleet schedule, this spreadsheet, we just need to bridge that gap, let's put that together. So yes, we'll bring that to you as part of this budget cycle.
Awesome.
Good idea.
Yeah, we need that as well. We do. Because our goal was, again, we'll talk about with the prioritization here in a few moments, it's always to smooth things out. We need to keep things smooth. We don't need to have ups and downs. That creates budgetary issues, both ups and downs do. You either need a tax increase and then next year you don't, or you want to take a tax decrease and then the next year you need it. So we like keeping things relatively equal and smooth around here without having much of a hiccup. So we can put that together.
Thank you.
What else do we miss or not talk about?
What I've got, more of a code change, it's not a budgetary item.
Okay.
Just a thought, I'll talk with you about it, is, like the Pierce Communication Enhancer or Booster. But, it's can be another subject for another time.
It's IT and other items. You can talk about some of it now. So you okay if I speak a little bit towards it?
Yeah.
We are constantly looking for ways for better communications, whether it's on your phone or whether it's for our public safety folks. We're working diligently to find solutions constantly to better those avenues. Something that's being done in places like Charlotte and Mecklenburg is a code change that requires new development to incorporate boosters essentially within their buildings as they're being built for radio communications. You being the fire guy you are, do you want to talk a little bit about how that works and how that entails? It's essentially a booster system.
It's what it is. It's a booster system. A lot of this come up with the large warehouse fires that Charlotte had. They were losing communication with the men inside. What this allows is we cannot produce a signal strength through what we have through our antenna and our communications, then what they do is they require that contractor to put in a booster system, which will build that signal strength up to where, say there was a fire inside, or say emergency services, heart attack, something like that. They're able to talk with their people in there and not have that void of not being able to talk with them. That's pretty much what it is. So.
It's extending out a network. It's extending out a simulcast network into, AT&T, FirstNet. I'll use this example. When, we went to FirstNet, one of the first things they talked about was, do you have any government buildings that you'd like to put boosters in to be able to enhance signals inside the buildings? Because we all know you get into some of these larger buildings, especially some of these older buildings that have concrete walls, et cetera, the signal strength drops in. So one of the things that we did there was we accepted boosters to be put in our government buildings. We have one at PD, we have one at Town Hall, we have one at the Child Care Center, school. I mean, we have them in several places throughout town. What's that?
Shop.
Yeah, down the shop, Public Works. This is the same technology with your handheld VHF, UHF, Viper type technology, is putting those things, same things within the buildings. They're doing it in places like Charlotte and others when buildings are being built. We've talked about it even potentially, and this is relatively newish technology. I mean, it's been out there, but Doug and I just started talking about it in the last month or two, about, even doing it and requiring it now as we're building out systems and what that looks like. It's not that you don't stand on the front door and have a signal, and Nathan can tell you, or Doug or who others, it's you don't have the signal when you get in the middle of the building. That's where you start losing signals a lot of times because of the fact you're inside of these walls that are 2 feet thick, whatever the case may be. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, what Charlotte's done is change their ordinance to require it as a part of it. We need to do a little more research on what that looks like, but it seems pretty straightforward right now. Is you've got buildings being built, you've got to provide the technology. Now that technology, from what I read with Charlotte and others, is you put it in, but it's our system. I mean, they don't have access to the network, channel 3, channel 4, whatever the case may be. It's ours. It's what we're utilizing. It's a requirement for them to put it in to help better the technology that's out there. Fair assessment?
Yeah, just on thought out there for public safety,
Absolutely.
Could I get one in my house? Because that booster of Verizon sent me not working well.
Yeah, when we got the FirstNet, again, FirstNet is government contracted only for these classifications, and that's right. So if you go back to FirstNet, if you were looking at a AT&T pole, not really, but at the very top of that pole is FirstNet, and then down below you start getting different classifications. So when you pick up a cell phone on FirstNet, you're going to go to the top. No matter if there's 50,000 people or 100,000 people trying to use that same pole, you go to the top of it. When we started talking to FirstNet and they're about these boosters, we said, how many can we get? And they said, only government buildings, only this, only that. And that's because they got to keep the integrity of the network not to be utilized any further within that. But talked about earlier, knock on wood, so far, we've not had issues with it. Police use it probably more than anybody.
It's been tremendous. I can't speak highly enough about it. We had the internet actually go down to the PD, and I was able to take one of our new Wi-Fi boxes from FirstNet and run our entire CAD system through dispatch through that box and keep service to the town. So, and during the hurricane, everybody else was struggling with communication. We were still up and running. We got boom with some of their investigations because their whole thing just went down. I can't speak highly enough about it.
So highly that I think we'll probably end up being a example for AT&T. I talked to Kathleen last week. She's gonna come up, I think, and talk to us about some of our experiences during the hurricane, because others around us don't have it, and we ended up staying up more than they did, and we ended up helping them. Nathan's example of our entire dispatch went down, and we utilized a box that's about the size of a phone to bring up the entire system on, because we got signal through that and powered it. Was the craziest thing I've seen in recent memory. So makes you want to just get rid of the rest of it and just use the box. But we lost communication for a moment and then utilized our FirstNet. What term is that? The hot box or whatever?
It's like a MiFi box.
Yeah, MiFi box, but hot box for that exact reason, to bring our entire system back up and utilize it. So we were only down for the amount of time it took to get it up and running, which was not long. And again, that was back to Thomas and everything. Hurricane's a great example of everybody instantly doing what they need to do and us being down for minutes, not for hours or days, but minutes, which is fantastic. So.
Council.
All right, so prioritization, we can make it simple. It's all important. So I started putting stuff, on board yesterday and day before yesterday up here, and we can definitely swing it this direction a little bit more. This is not everything, but this is a lot of things, right? That we can put up here and talk about. Everybody see it? Turn it this way.
That's expensive.
Is that doable? You want to see it? Those are, a good amount of items that we've talked about. We've done things in the past with voting and stickies and that kind of thing. I think we can probably go a little low tech this time if we want to, and just maybe talk about it. And put dots up or numbers up or whatever the case may be up. There's a lot of stuff on here. Let me start by saying, can we afford it? Because that's probably going to play in some of this factor, right? Can we afford what's up here? Everybody get it with that? So Memorial, we'll start on the first day. We'll go back kind of to the agenda and what we talked about. A lot of recap on day number 1, of course. In the afternoon, we talked about parking. So parking's not up here, but it's going to be in a minute when I flip the board over. You'll see that in a few moments. That was really the thing from day 1 that was on there. Downtown subcommittee, we got head nods. We know where we're heading with that, as far as I know. Right, so we're going to get through this next piece, and then we're going to bring that to a conclusion and kind of revert back to see where next steps are. Prior to that, Tracy did a TDA update, talked about a social district. I didn't put a social district up here because I don't think that fits in with I think that could be a conversation, but it didn't feel like it fit within the ones that are up here. Everything else that day was discussions we had that we know is coming up. Then we get into yesterday, Memorial Park, sidewalks, paving, Main Street. Main Street got complex, right? So we're talking crosswalks, we're talking streetscape work potentially there. Then we got into water and we got into sewer. Talked about the reservoir, needed to get the EAP done, needed to get some additional work done on the dam, which we don't have pricing for yet, with some tree removal, et cetera. And then we even made a plan over here on the right. Well, let's go ahead and move forward with Sunset on the crosswalk to make sure that we like what we're getting. We'll get some samples. Doug mentioned before he left yesterday, he'd already reached out. He's going to have samples for the February meeting. So we can go ahead and have that out there if you're okay with it. We'll try to get some samples of what that looks like and maybe get greens in here pretty early this spring and put that together. We talked about employee housing and a number of things. So I've got on the flip side here, a listing of things. If I remember how to flip it. It goes one way, not the other. I think it goes this way. There we go. of things that I think that we've talked about, that we can start discussions of priorities. What's possible financially is dependent on the timing of some of this stuff. I did reach out, and Tasha yesterday reached out, had a good conversation with our folks at First Con, what they're seeing in the way of financing, and what they're seeing in the way of packages that are out there. Bring them to yeah, you see both? So, what's on the right is pretty much on the left. On the left is potential options on how we can pay for some of this stuff. So, it's all possible, right? As long as we're willing to maybe make some adjustments. I will say this, we've got more flexibility on anything general fund side as we do on the water and sewer side. Water and sewer is going to be important, but it's going to require rates. That's where we are. Our water and sewer fund right now, I would say a good way to describe it is we're breaking even, maybe making a little bit of money. We're not making a ton of money. If we take on debt on the water and sewer side, which we're going to, we know that, because we've already incorporated the USDA piece in there, that means rate increases as we're offsetting debts. On the general fund side, we've got some capacity coming up that we can start talking about today because it starts rolling off here in the next 1 to 2 fiscal years. So whatever we talk about today and whatever we put into place even this year is not going to start making impacts until we start rolling some of that off. So I'll stop talking for a minute and just get some feedback on what do you think about these things? How do you want to approach it? And I can pull the spreadsheet up as well and kind of talk through some of the capacity that we have.
Could we start with the most immediate needs?
Sure.
Like I'm thinking about Memorial Park and selecting one of those bids and moving forward with that.
Absolutely. You know, we can star the ones that are immediate that we know. So this one's coming to you in February. That's coming. Our plan is that's coming to you right now. I've already incorporated that one, so I'll say a check mark. That's already in the box for moving forward. And that number fits within our debt schedule. And I'll pull that up here in just a second. So that one, yes, you want to check it off or star it or wherever the case may be. We can do that one for sure.
And maybe we don't have to worry about because that's already the lift station.
Correct.
Yeah.
Where do you see maybe on here?
No,
Yeah, USDA is
Let's go
approved as
through
well. Yeah, USDA I didn't put up here because we've already approved that one. So USDA, maybe lift station, water plant, sewer plant. You've already approved that. We've already entered into an agreement at this point with USDA and we've already paid McGill a good amount of money to design it and did it. So that one's a done deal. What we didn't know, I put up here like Memorial Park, but I thought we were good with bringing that forward in February and getting that one moving.
It was agreed upon. Sidewalk repairs.
EAP, don't we have to do
Yeah, I was gonna
that?
say the
Yes.
EAP and dam work.
Yeah, so, you know, right here in February as well, that's coming, if that's, again, everybody agrees with that?
Sunset Crosswalk.
What's that?
Sunset Crossing.
Sunset Crosswalk, yep.
And sidewalk repairs.
So February as well, so we've got those three on February right now, EAP, Memorial Park, and crosswalks coming.
You better be careful. February is gonna be loaded up.
Well, Mr. Mayor, do you want to, how do you want to handle?
I'm not gonna have anything contentious come up after 9 o'clock. Okay? We set that and voted on that sometime back.
And we're talking about, the roads that, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, to that point, then we need some assistance in helping decide when we want to do this stuff. I mean, we can put it on there and move from there or how we want to put it, but.
Well, you would know better than us, which you would feel shows the most urgency, the quickest, okay?
Currently, we have Green Park in. I'm not aware of anything else that we have staff, any other knowledge of anything in February. Obviously, that is what it is on its own.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
That's the only thing I'm aware of right now.
I see 2 hours of Green Park in, at least.
Doug, what are you saying?
Oh, I thought we was prioritizing,
Yes.
or the top 10 here, yes.
Do we want to,
Well, Memorial Park needs to be done. Correct?
Correct. Anything else on here, let me start this way. Anything else on here other than the three that we know is coming forth, I guess is my point, right? We know these, I was trying to eliminate what do we know that we've said we're going to do regardless, and then we can start maybe identifying what we feel like is kind of a top 10 list.
Were we going to get a list of the sidewalk repairs that are most important?
I have those.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll share those with you. Also with the paving, I have a list. McGill's provided me with both of those already, so I've got both lists
The roads.
to provide you with the roads based on worst to best. I've got that as well.
So
That was the reason I said paving is number 4, because you've got 3 up there as far as if you're trying to prioritize things.
on the paving, is that the repair paving or is that the, like,
We never on paving, we didn't do any expansion. We just did
Expansion.
the 1.7 million worth of current needs based on anything graded below a 60 is what we did.
so to me, like, the sidewalk repairs would be budgeted. The sidewalk expansion would be like a bond issue.
So before we start numbering, let me talk out loud a couple different options here. So the real numbers we talked about on sidewalk repair, and this writing's not the best, sorry, is about 750,000. Crosswalks on Main, including flat work, Doug and I were talking yesterday, crosswalks, we put numbers up there. We were gonna just put $1 million on here. That would incorporate crosswalks and any curb outs and extensions that are potentially needed there. So we'll put $1 million into that. And then the paving on the phase 1, I've seen the list. I forgot last night to bring it up. I apologize. About 750,000 of it was below 50. And then the other about $1 million was between 50 and 60. So it wasn't as big of a number that was critical. It was about 750. That being said, there's a couple of different options. I thought about doing, could we do the first phase, which is 750, and then the second phase over here, for repairs, which is about $1 million. And that gets us to the first under 50, and then the 50 to the 60 range within that. That being said, something to think about, and this is all up to you all, but, dividing it between what would be more needed now and then what would be needed later from a bond standpoint. We talked about bonds. If we agree to go to the bond market and the voters agree to allow us to move forward with it, that would not happen until November of 2026, which means we're really not moving forward with anything until we'll say late 27, if not 28. So when we're prioritizing this, not to make it even more confusing, we're kind of talking 25, 26, 27, and then maybe 28 and beyond in so many different ways, if we go this route. Talked to First Tryon yesterday. This gets back to what I was saying a minute ago. And they just finished up this week closing on the bid process for a streetscape package for Hendersonville that included crosswalks, sidewalks, paving, etc., sidewalk repair. Same stuff that's on that left side over there. They received about a 4% interest rate over 15 years. So that is a possibility of us, if we're sitting here and talking, that we want to maybe do 750, $1 million, 750, that's a $2.5 million potential option that we would go and receive bids for and go ahead and package that up into some type of a deal that would allow us to move forward with providing those opportunities. That's being done, that was done this week with Hendersonville, so it's out there. There's examples of banks doing that, and they received many bids, she said, enough to be more than happy with the process. That wasn't something that we've really done in the past. We've kind of won off these things. Because we've talked about doing sidewalk repairs. Maybe we do 200,000 one year, 200,000 another year, 200,000 another year. We can still do that. Another option to think about is we could go towards the direction of potentially doing a package installment loan through banks to do several pieces of that. So that probably just muddies the water even more for y'all's thoughts, but that's an option that's out there. That does take some pressure off the operating budget and puts it more towards the debt service side of things. Again, our best case scenario, if we do any of this stuff, other than Memorial Park, I will say this, that has to be done now. We've got $500,000 on the line. We've got to move forward with it. I would not want to muddy the water with anything else other than Memorial Park and getting those mains out there. I think Tosh would probably agree. We want to get that one moving separate. The others, if we package together, we would do that, we do that later on in the summer, that kind of thing, kind of slow things down a little bit, but we don't want to lose Memorial Park and the grant that comes with that. The EAP and the sunset, crosswalks, those are the things that are coming to you now, because those are the things we've got time.
Yeah, EAP needs to be done. The crosswalk at Sunset needs to be done.
Parking enforcement. I mean, I'm like, come on, let's start this now. Let's start getting our ducks in a row and figure out what our process is and start talking to business owners and we don't need to not do this.
So we're talking here not a lot of money up front. I mean, not upfront money. Now, what is going to cost money is once we get it up and running, we've got to have people.
Right.
That's going to be a cost. Nathan and I have talked, and putting him on the spot somewhat, is we feel like we've got somebody that is more than capable of helping be the administrator of this. Is that fair to say, Nathan?
Absolutely.
That's already here, already paying them. Whether that means we pay them more and there's more skills, we haven't talked through that details. But we feel like we've got someone in-house that's more than capable of being the champion, the cheerleader we need to get this thing up and running. But we need to hire a couple folks part-time, more than likely, or something like that, to be able to do the enforcement piece of it. That we can get moving on relatively soon. I mean, we can give Meredith a call and have her come up and talk through some of these different options and software, et cetera. We just need to get everybody in the room, like the person we're talking. And again, this person's not a current officer. I shouldn't say that, not a sworn officer. Someone on the administrative side is what we're talking here. So we don't want to confuse those two. We wouldn't be asking officers to be enforcing that. We would run through that different scenario.
I mean, relatively speaking, in terms of costs and the rest of the list items, it's not that much.
How do y'all feel about
I
it?
mean, over time,
Yeah.
paying people, but, I mean, that adds up, but still.
I think that's something we need to move ahead with. So kind of what I was thinking in terms of what we could do in the next budget cycle, if not this one, is EAP. This is general fund monies.
Mhm.
EAP, Sunset Crosswalk,
Memorial Park.
not out of general fund, that's a loan, and parking enforcement.
Okay.
And then things that we would need to get a loan for. Oh, and some money in there for workforce housing, if that's feasibility study, if that's design, that's something we want to move ahead with, but that would be a general fund item in terms of the dollar amount. And then immediate loan type items would be crosswalks, although they may be not as immediate. We need to go ahead and get design for bulb outs and flat work and all of that. Memorial Park. And then I would look at a loan for our most critical paving and sidewalk issues.
Okay.
You know, if we've got 780 in sidewalks, maybe that's over, maybe we get a loan for the most critical and then the rest goes into a bond. And then the same with the paving.
Can we do that loan without coming up with additional collateral?
No, but that being said, we've got options there.
We do.
Yeah, we do as well. When I talk to her today, we've got some options of some credit worthiness is out there. Depends on what amount we're talking about.
And that pretty much takes in what you said right over there.
Yeah, the most critical, so the sidewalk repairs, is, talking through kind of the thought process. We're not gonna do them all at one time because they're all over the town. I mean, it's a here. So it's a year or so process to get them all repaired. But it probably makes sense to go ahead and just put the full 750 in there and get one contractor like Greens or somebody on the hook to do them, even though it takes them a while to do so. Doug and I did talk about the yesterday, and he wanted me to kind of pass that along. Unless we're going to really separate them out strategically, which we can do, it's probably going to cost more if we end up going out each time to do something different. He said, it may be one of those, we hand them 38 different ones and we say, you're going to do all these on Main Street or all these on Morris or et cetera, over time, but we'll go ahead and get that priced for one contractor to do so and then move that direction. And to me, that makes sense too.
This will have to go out to bid though, won't it?
If we did something what's on the left-hand side, it would be one installment loan potentially, but we would have multiple contractors. I mean, we would bid sidewalks, we would bid crosswalks, and we would bid paving, 3 separate contractors. We're doing that because that's, maybe the crosswalks and the sidewalks could be the same one, but yes, we'd bid them out 3 separate pieces to the bid document that's out there. Or probably 3 separate bids because paving, the 2 don't overlap typically who's doing that type of work. If that makes any sense. David, what we were saying is what you just said is basically kind of what I had on the left-hand side of it here. Is that fair to say is we're looking to prioritize the needs that are needed now. So if we were to do, I'll box this in. We've got long A, which we need to go for now. Long B-ish. Sidewalk repairs, crosswalks, Main Street work, paving phase 1. And then over here is the longer term. And these numbers may change a little bit as we prioritize it. I just put those up there. But the most critical sidewalks, the most critical paving, the most, and then of course we've got our Main Street work that we know is coming up that we've got to get on with our crosswalks and all that work. Am I missing the point there? Is that kind of what you were saying?
Yes, sir.
And that's doable. I mean, it's a doable scenario for us. I plugged in our system here, and I know that sounds cheesy to say, but it is plugged in. What is plugged in here, you can see. Let me make it bigger for all the eyes to see. Can everybody see that within here? These are just, we can plug these in, but we plugged in Memorial Park as if it started in 2025, which means we won't make the loan payment till 2026. We put in sidewalk repairs starting in 2026. I don't know if we can get any in 2025. If we do, that's great, just depending on the weather. But again, you got to put one here to get one here. So let's say we do sidewalks and Main Street crosswalks and flat work and all of our main severe and poor street pavings in 26. Whether we get it 25 or not, late 25 or 26. I put some placeholders in here for the debt being started in 2027. So that's in here right now. Does that make sense to everybody? Mm-hmm. And then what we were talking about with Tasha was after that, we're really getting into sidewalk expansions, next rounds of pavings that's left. And then we did put some placeholders in here for some potential needs later down the road for like Devant bathrooms, Legion Hill. I put housing in here if it started in 2026. We just wanted to put some placeholders in to see what shook out within that. But this is on the general fund side. This is not the water and sewer side. This is on the general fund side.
And the parking enforcement would be on the general side.
Correct, operating wise. And that's in here too. So not to get too, if I click on this tab here, we can put a number in there for it. Right now, the number I put in there was $50,000. That number may be low, it may be high, I don't know. I mean, we got to sit down and flush that out, what that looks like and how often we do it, that kind of thing.
I'm like Cat, I think that needs to be in place and ready to go when the paving's done, because when you look at all the parking places that we're losing on Main Street, these people are not gonna be used to it. Somebody's gonna have to enforce them not parking there, and the way it's gonna be set up, so.
Do we think we need all the sidewalk repair at one time?
We had talked, it's not going to happen at the same time, but does it make sense to get a bid for all at the same time is yet to be determined. Does it make sense to put the whole 38 sections out for bid and try to get one price to do them all and then let them stagger out, us talk with them about staggering it out. What Doug sent me is we don't have as many that are considered critical as what we did on the paving side. But on the sidewalk side, we got a lot that are falling in disrepair. But to his point, once they start falling, they're going to continue to fall. And so, we can do that two different ways. We can either put it all out for bid at one time and then have them all replaced over the course of a year or two, or we can put it out piecemeal and what that looks like. We've got it broken out in segments, based on geographically where they are. So,
Couldn't we possibly get a better price if we put it all out there at once?
I was just thinking in terms of, is it better to cycle it through 3 budget cycles or to get a loan and try to do it all? And I just don't know how much falls in severe and what's just kind of not pretty.
there's not as much on that as severe as what, and I've got it, I'll send it to y'all. It's not severe as in, there's places, but we've got money and we can put money in the budget to do some of those. So if it's not 750, maybe David, it's 650, we can carve out some of those. What I didn't put up here is we've got some transportation money that we know we have in the range of a few $100,000 that we can spend towards anything, sidewalks, streets, crosswalks, et cetera. We're gonna do that with Sunset. I mean, the money that it takes through Sunset, we're gonna take and do that with. What's left over, could be towards those most critical, either paving or sidewalk needs that are out there. But overall, big picture, even if we did 100,000 in sidewalk, we're still gonna have another 650 or so thousand that we need to do. So these are just roundish numbers, if that makes sense. The most critical things we would suggest, Tasha and I, we were talking about that this morning. The critical things that are needed that fit within that transportation number we have, we'll bring those to you all now. But let's separate those out. Those are gonna happen. We need to do those. That includes Sunset. That does not include, the other stars we put up there. That'll have to be separate that we do, if that makes sense.
And the sidewalks, I think we would get a better price of bidding them out at one time. Because you got a company looking at saying, okay, I've got at least maybe a year or better's worth of work here. So I'm gonna be in Bourne Rock this long, I think you'll get a better price. But then if you take that it's looking that it's gonna go over a year, you're going into, like David had said, 2 budget cycles then anyway.
The operating budget, it is tough to put more than just X amount in it new each year, because then it has a ripple effect from a taxation, et cetera standpoint. Anything we can do to smooth it out helps us out. So, I mean, if we go down these directions, what I didn't, again, put up there, I don't have a whiteboard left hardly, is that we do have that transportation money that can take care of these critical things. And we'll bring those to you all soon, as in the next couple of months, we can bring that to you all and get a plan in place. The bigger stuff makes sense if we're gonna do this, 600,000 in repairs or 750 in paving. We really need to go down the long road because it just helps us. We can do that for 15 years. Now we're talking, spreading that out, and it's 30,000 a year versus 300,000 a year. And that allows for things like the unknowns. Our biggest things that are always changing, not only salaries and benefits, but insurance costs, et cetera. So our growth on the revenue side, we always hope is enough to help offset those things, so we don't have to adjust one versus the other. So the operating budget as a whole is tough to put a ton into. I think to David's point earlier, it makes more sense to put in the deferred maintenance stuff in there, those reoccurring, those make sense in the operating budget. Really, these things outside of some of the ones we started, it really makes sense to put those more towards a loan or a bond, because we can smooth them out. They're just big numbers that we just don't have the capacity to take on without really adjusting the tax rate. Putting all this in, again, so $1 million for Memorial Park is our number. Sidewalk repairs, throwing all of them up there. Again, that will only go down if we use transportation money to get some of that. Main Street crosswalks, we put $1 million in there. We feel, again, this Doug and I talking, that, say 750 to the crosswalks, another 250 for flat work. That's a lot of flat work. Bulb outs, et cetera, on that. And streets, I put 750 because that's the amount that are currently rated severe or poor. Then you get into the, I can't remember what terminology you use, but they're not great. That's the next step. But those 4 pieces, or these 3 pieces, sidewalks, Main Street, and streets, that's what I have over here. That's where, and I may have, I think I've got those numbers roughly up there. Yeah, $2.5 million is what it is. I put it in here all getting done in 26-ish and all going on the books in 27 from a debt. And then I just lumped everything together beyond that, sidewalk expansions. again, I didn't go into a lot of detail, but, you know, if we started in 2027 after the bond was passed, and we wanted to get the first section, 1.5 million, you know, maybe that's Clark Street, or, maybe that's Clark Street and Wallingford. And then we wanted to go a couple years later and do another one for 2.5 million, maybe that's Ransom Street and Church Street. You know, again, paving, that's that rest that's out there in the next, you know, few years. That's the bigger, you know, chunk. I rounded it up to 2 million, just to put some placeholders. Once we get past the next couple of years, we really get into a whole lot of what do we have going on. That being said, all of that essentially fits without really talking much in the way of tax impacts. So you'll see over here on the right where our 11 cent, we got a year or so where it gets up here a little bit more and then down here a little bit more as we're rolling things on. And again, these are subject to change. I don't want the taxpayers to think we're not going to ask for more money to do it. But because our fall off happens in existing right here, 1.7 to 1.1 to 9, we're able to start backfilling with proposed debt right here. So those dates, again, we play with those dates, but those dates work for a hypothetical right now for us to be able to move forward with these projects, if that makes sense. And of course, again, on record, every year we have to reevaluate tax rates and things of that nature. We did not take into consideration right here is a revalve year too. We left it at 2%. We didn't change anything within that. That revalve year and the bond would be flowing about the same time. That's a conversation to be had around that same time. So as our,
That stays at 40 cents.
that stays at 40 cents. That's not changing. Hypothetically. Just keep saying that.
For 3 years.
Yeah, and about, then we start needing to think about things. Maybe it's a penny, you know, again, what we would need to do, if we can put numbers up here for everybody else to see, but if we were to go this route, which we're going in February, more apart, if we want to go ahead and start working on what this package looks like, we can do so and have that ready in a few months of what that looks like. This is going to be more, we need to figure this out and really put out, so we got to put literature out, we got to put out real numbers and real data of what we're doing there. We think we know, but that gives us time. That gets us through this year. You know, Tasha not having a stroke and not, getting the software and all that stuff. And you know, my favorite, what's my saying? It'll be, what I say? It'll be okay. It's okay. We got this. We got this. Always. We always have this. We always have this. No problems with that. But this would provide some flexibility in between the years to be able to think through that. Does that make sense? Are we understanding of that?
Yeah, maybe paving will come down.
Do we want to look at water and sewer
Yes.
too?
Yeah, sure do. On the general fund side, we don't know if we can get paving contractors. I mean, this all may be fine and well, and they say, we'll be there in 2030. Yeah. No, we don't even know yet. No, we feel good we can get contractors into place. But, you know, February is going to be Memorial Park, EAP, dam work. Now, I say dam work. We're not going to have that dam work ready by February, but the EAP we will. We'll have that in front of you. So you're going to have that more than likely on consent. You know, you'll have that up there. Memorial Park, we'll need to go through the typical, here's our bids, here's our bid tally. We recommend this bid. Here's how we're going to pay for it. We'll do that. And then Sunset intersection, crosswalk, we'll need you all to pick what do you want to go with that night. We can make that quick. That's not an very long conversation for sure. Employee housing, a little more complex. I'm going to start conversations with two things, feasibility, but that also is Representative Pickett. So that's what I heard today. Is that right with everybody? Have a conversation with him and start talking through what that looks like on writing.
I don't really think you can do a whole lot till you get the state to give us the go-ahead.
Yeah, I would, if that's something we want to move ahead with, that's the first step, obviously. But as we're moving into budget season, putting a little money toward that in terms of design.
Okay.
And
And more data, more information.
more data. How would we finance infrastructure for it, things of that nature.
Okay. All right, so. I'm probably messing y'all up, because we normally do this with our top 10 list, and we can do that. I don't wanna make anybody feel like we're not doing the top 10 list. I left for a year and I came back with different ideas, right? So I'm changing up the whole thing, but we can put it in numbers if we want to. It's up to y'all. I did number them, but this is not in priority order. Number one will be our first installment package, sidewalk repairs, paving, crosswalks, streetscape would be a potential number 2 package is what we're talking about here as in installment loans. And then really we're getting into expansion here with bonds. If we do anything, and that fits extremely well. Anything expanding your sidewalks, expanding your trails, expanding your parks, bond. I mean, that sells bonds all day long, of course. And then we get into the water and sewer conversation. You know, that one's trickier. We currently have on our plate the second largest project the town's ever done. We just finished the first one. The second one will be a major upgrade to the water plant, wastewater plant, and our Mayview lift station. That's already happening. That being said, we don't either, one, have a tremendous amount of capacity in the current structure rates to do any more work in the next year or two. Because of that, we really need to get through that piece now. When we talk about with water lines and sewer lines, expansion, that type of thing, go back to the spreadsheet, is really getting us beyond with the years here. I have not turned those on, but I will. You know, we are probably a couple years away from being able to even really think about doing any major project, water and sewer, if that makes sense, because of where we are with our current coming off of the Main Street project. Even though that didn't cost us anything, the USDA is rolling on in 2026, 2027. We need to think through getting through that project just from, if nothing else, maybe a saturation standpoint. It's a lot. Is that fair for everybody? What I did put in here, and we can change these. Let's talk about maybe, so I put in here, and we can turn these on just to make them so they're highlighted, was, you know, starting with our more critical water line replacements and then getting into, and again, Chatola's even in here to an extent with maybe some numbers. But what Doug and I were talking about is, you know, one of our first areas that's probably critical, and Matt, please chime in here, is sewer line expansion is not critical. I mean, it is maybe to a homeowner if they have it. So I don't want to make that statement publicly. But expansion is something that is, if we do it next week or if we do it 2 years from now, it is when we do it. And we do need to do some research. We need to figure out, even though we had 19 homes listed on Country Club, who's going to hook up to it? I know we can start charging, but are there needs there? We have not gone that far to talk about needs within that. Where needs are really is our water line replacements on Pine and Park and Green. That's our next area. And we added something in as a surprise, as while we're doing the water line on Park, we need to really redo the sewer line on Park Avenue as well. So we did throw that in yesterday as well, or last night, so surprise. But put in a number in there for $500,000. If we're to do the one on Pine Park and Green Park especially, we need to go ahead and replace that sewer line. Matt can attest, Doug, others can attest, that sewer line, especially when it gets to Wallingford, all the way down to the pool, needs to be replaced if we're going to be in there replacing any water lines. Is that fair, Matt?
Absolutely. That's, as far as sewer goes, that's one of the biggest issues we have. Corey deals with in Parkinson, or in his building, it backs up in there, you know, pretty often, so. Definitely.
Well, I forgot to even, Corey's the one I should ask.
Yeah.
Corey, do you think we need to replace the sewer line? Corey's gonna say yes. But even with the quickest of measures, it's gonna take us a year or two to get to that point of getting things ready to go. It's just a lot of work ahead of time to get to that. So this is going on right now, even though we don't start paying for it until 2027. That work's coming first, and that's a lot of work coming to the plants and a lot of work coming to the Mayview lift station. And then after that, we can interchange this stuff But really, you know, if you look over to the right, we're almost talking bonds for most of the stuff thereafter. We really need to space it out as far as we can space it out if we can, to be able to get the best smoothness approach. The water and sewer fund, unlike the general fund, it's tight, and it's always gonna be tight. And we've done a tremendous amount of work already. I don't wanna underemphasize the work that you all have approved over the last 5 years on the water and sewer side. Is probably the busiest 5 years that the town has ever had in water and sewer, I'm guessing. I don't know, in Matt's history, I would think that's fair. When you think of all the projects we've accomplished in the last few years, we've made tremendous headway in the water and sewer side. The meters alone, we're talking about for 10 years or 15 years. Main Street's talked about 50 or 40 or 30, ever how many years. These are big checkoffs. So I don't want to make it sound like we're pushing the can down the road, but we need to try to be strategic probably about that.
I think you definitely need to rate the water and sewer by urgency and need moving forward. So, you know, year or 2 years, we need to replace sewer line, water lines, park, green. If that shows precedence, then we put it in there. I don't know what the urgency is on any of those.
If there's an urgency, it's probably on Park. But it's not an urgency. Chatola is an urgency because of the amount of breaks, but we got to figure out a plan for Chatola.
Yeah, that would need.
That's an animal.
Yeah, that'd need to be a partnership.
That's an animal that that would disrail this entire thing.
Where does land acquisition fit?
Isn't currently on there, but it would be general fund. And we could definitely put a placeholder in there as a potential. Land provides collateral. So depending on what you pay for that land, you may have more collateral in that land than what you're doing to be able to borrow money off other things as well. So we want to put a number in for future land acquisitions.
I think we should.
All right. Watch this.
Would you plug in $500,000?
We'll do 750. How's that sound?
Okay.
I like how we had a line already.
Just happen to be there.
He was just waiting on somebody to ask a question, so he played with it. Waiting for you. Yeah.
All right, then we'll go over and turn it on. Put 2025/2026, so we don't really have a number on it. Is that fair?
Yes,
Okay. All right, so, yeah, we had a line there for land acquisition, so that works out pretty well. So we put 750 in there. We turned it on to be purchased either in 25 or 26, which puts us throwing the debt in 26/27. That still shows you, we've got a lot more flexibility on the general fund side. You can see, we do have a conversation that's had, and this year rolling over, let me go to the left, because it's kind of hard to see. All right. This is the budget coming up as we go across. We do have a little bit of a conversation that's going to have to be had if we go through with all this stuff. But again, let's not push pause or anything on that until we really flush out the timing of all this stuff. We put a lot of stuff in 2025, 26, 27 timeframe within that. But you can see by putting that in there, it still really fits within. And again, there's a lot of undetermineds we don't have here, indetermineds, that kind of thing within this. But we did put 750 in there for future land acquisitions. We feel like that's a good number, probably.
What did Doug?
We put more or less, or we?
What's your face?
Well, it's without revealing much, it's been talked about,
Oh, yeah.
It not be a low number.
I agree. A low number?
I mean, I think your number may be a low number.
Okay. What do you think? Double? Million?
Well, I'm looking at the one spot, you know, and I think at least one, you know.
Yeah. Okay. So I put $1.5 million in there, so that does change as we get down into, this is 27, 28, 29 timeframe. We're a penny or two off in that 28, 29 timeframe. That's a bond. I mean, now we're talking bond conversation. What it does is keep, yeah, what it does, even with the bond in there, you know, this is our total debt service at that point. We've been 1.8, 1.9. We're now down 1.7. You know, what we did have a drop off here. Going back, our typical annual debt payments, Tasha, have been that 1.7 to $2 million range. What this does really does spread that out nicely. We get up to 2.4 at one point, but again, we're way down the road here. That 2.4 at that point is not as critical as what 2.4 would be today, if that makes sense. But we put some land money in there, Charlie, just to make sure $1.5 million future land acquisitions.
You went up to $1.5 million?
We went $1 million. Doug didn't
I
want.
shouldn't have gone to the.
Yeah, Doug.
He was just like my wife.
Doug said double it, and so we doubled it, and get the checkbook out. It really does allow, though, the point is, our goal is to keep this number like our fleet. Our fleet is a give or take $500,000. We want to keep this give or take $2-ish million with some change as we get up into the years, because that really helps us out to be able to smooth things out from an operating standpoint, so we don't have this roller coaster ride.
You've got the debt roll-off out how far?
This is solid. This is every piece of debt we have. This thing goes on, I don't want to give you all of it. It goes all the way to the end.
Just to be on council.
So we have it hidden, but we went through 2038 on the spreadsheet, but we've got the rest hidden, but this is all the debt, all the bonds, all that stuff. And again, we didn't want to go beyond that from the spreadsheet standpoint because what is that, 13 years from now? I don't know. I don't know who's going to be here in 13 years.
It's until Shane's contract runs out.
Remember, I thought it was 3. Is it a 1? Yeah, John, go ahead.
You missed
Put a 1 and.
You missed the fine print, buddy.
You did very close enough, Shane.
Damn, I didn't know that, yeah. Have to renegotiate at some point. What do we think on the?
I think it is something, at least for the next 12, 24 months.
Yeah, it's going to change, but we just wanted to get
It's a great,
real conversations about real capacity, about real feasibility, if that makes everybody happy.
This is gonna make budget season so much easier.
Oh, yeah. So what you're going to see, again, coming next, Memorial Park, EAP, Sunset Crosswalks, you're getting that in about 12 days. Does that sound right, 13 days? And then we're going to start working behind the scenes, Tasha, it'll be fine. Yeah. To start thinking through that secondary, because we've got to get going on Main Street, to your point. We can do that, design and work, but that's going to be a March, April, May, us conversation deciding on what we want to do with getting Main Street rolling. With both Memorial Park and Main Street, let me back up and say this. It probably doesn't make sense with sidewalk repairs or even paving unless it's critical. But anytime we're talking like Main Street, where we want to come in right after potentially, or not, depends on what work we're looking at timing wise. We can always have before you all a reimbursement resolution that gives us the authority as soon as we get the loan, we can pay ourselves back. That's something we've done here quite often, and it's done all across the state. Is if we need to start a project tomorrow, even though we don't have the loan closing until March, you guys pass that reimbursement resolution. It gives legal authority. As soon as that loan closes, we just pay it back. It's all paper transactions back and forth. It's real money to start with, but chances of us starting any of these projects and paying outside of the Memorial Park, I would say our first invoice won't be due until midsummer, probably at the earliest. Most of the time, we're about 60 to 90 days after we start the project before we even pay the first invoice. So we will not be in a situation where we're struggling cash-wise, is what I'm saying, on any of this stuff.
You good, counsel?
Do you want me to send it out and y'all put numbers beside of it? Would that be, I didn't want to, is that okay? I just threw last night, I was like, what if we just don't put numbers beside of it? And it came in, first thing Melissa said, I've got my top 10 list. I was like,
Yeah, but mine wasn't 1 through 10 either, so
Yeah,
mine was in categories.
okay, perfect, good, all right.
Good.
12:05, so we're 5 minutes behind schedule. The plan as of right now is if you're good with it, we're good with this. We'll save it all, get it all wrapped up, and then we go to lunch. We reconvene at 1:30 at Town Hall.
You guys and gals good with this?
Yes.
Okay. I make a motion to adjourn till 1:30 at Town Hall. We'll reconvene.
Before you do it, let me say again, thank you to you all. Thank you for your participation. This afternoon's going back to school. Oops, hang on. Going back to school. Want to thank the staff. Obviously, what Doug Chapman said yesterday is completely true in this situation. They make all this happen. I just stand up here and I'm the pretty face that talks about it.
We know that.
So they're all the ones that work. Not that you don't have pretty faces. So lunch, reconvene, and we get to go back to school. So get ready. Class is dismissed.
I love school. I can't wait.